Good evening. Welcome to the June council meeting. The mayor is out today, so I'm standing in. And please excuse my fumbles as we work our way through the first time we're doing it. So it's 5:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. And we'll start with the roll call.
Oh, did you change your last name? I didn't ask you.
It's not legally changed yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna say council member X. Sorry,
Present.
Graham,
Here.
Lakin is not present. Skylar.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer
Here.
and Mayor Clark is not present.
Is there any other question?
Person, I can take a picture later. Can I take a picture in some moment?
Sure.
It's asking you.
Yeah, when we get to you're here for the proclamation.
Yes.
Correct? Do you want to wait until we get to that?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, sir. If I'd like to request the addition of two items. First one being consideration of promulgating voluntary water restrictions pursuant to the town's water and conservation management plan, or excuse me, water conservation and management plan. That's item number one. Item number two, consideration of extending Stryker's closure of the Stryker Construction's closure of the half block of Laura Street between Clinton Street and the alley located halfway between Clinton Street and Charles Street, associated with the Ridgway Space Grade project.
All righty. We'll add those as the last two then.
And then I have an item for the consent agenda. The renewal of the liquor store license for Ridgway Liquors.
Okay. And so that will go on the consent agenda.
Please.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Does anybody have any issues with the consent calendar?
I move to approve consent calendar. Second.
All right. Moved in second. Roll call vote.
Council members Enix. Grambly.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye. Okay, now we're up to the public comments. Does anybody from the public have any comments that they want to add or bring forward that are not on the agenda?
Yeah, you're right.
Hearing none, we'll move on with the public requests and presentations. First one up is item number 5, update on the Ridgway Elementary School renovation project. Please step forward, announce your name.
Great, good evening. I'm Heidi Hampson, the Ridgway Elementary School principal. And I am Susan Lacey, the Ridgway superintendent. And we have this virtually and hard copy to share, I guess. But we wanted to take an opportunity to share with the town how excited we are about the renovation project that's going on in the elementary school. And it's been a little bit quiet because we've been in the design process and we didn't want to share a design we couldn't afford. So we are finally at the place where the design process, which began 3 years ago, really. In fact, Preston Neal was on that, Mayor Clark was on the strategic planning group. We have a lot of community members that helped with the initial strategic planning. And then that moved into assessing if we could go for a bond and mill levy, and our community was very supportive and we passed both successfully. And now we have since moved into the design process, and Heidi can share a little bit about that design process and the work that went into that too before we show the plans. Just so you know, the two of us didn't make this up together. Like, this was actually a long process of the community.
Susan, do you want this site plan up on the screen?
Yeah. We're going to share two versions. One will be next year, which is the temporary transition, and then the design process. And Heidi will speak to the actual design. So maybe I can talk about this first, and then you can talk about how we got to the final design. Sure. That makes sense. So FCI will be our construction team, RTA out of Colorado Springs, which actually began with us 3 years ago in the strategic plan, was selected as our architect. And Christine Costa, who is the lead architect on the project, has been incredible. Just wonderful to work with. And this is to show you, the dotted map shows how we're going to separate, because this is a project where we need to have construction ongoing all next year when we have students in the building. We are not a big enough town to put all of our kids either over in secondary or somewhere else. So what we have done, and Heidi's staff and team did a tremendous job of clearing out the 1972 building, which is that red building with all the lines that was built 50 years ago. That is right now, as we speak, being mitigated of asbestos. So we took everything out of there, moved everything over onto the 96 north side of the building, which was built 20 years later. And construction will take place from the back side of the building. So you can see that dotted line is FCI's construction fence. And then I think you've got we have a slightly more updated version of this fence, but there will actually be a fence that will go around this with a gate, because we've got our 5th grade will be in this temporary classroom, and our art and music are there. So we want to secure the kids within a fenced area, because they'll enter into the building for bathroom and other classes this way. So that's one in this document. We just got an updated version 2 hours ago. So sorry, Kristen. But anyway, and then the main entry will be moved over here to the 96 building next year. And all of the kids will enter either here or here. And then this will be the walkway. The green is the walkway around to the playground. We'll still use the playground. The preschool is not moving next year. They're staying in that location for next year. And then we have a little bit of overflow construction area if we need it up in what was once upon a time high school parking. For those of you that maybe are new to the community, this entire building was a pre-K-12 building until 2006. In 2006, the secondary building opened up. And so as a result, the building design never made sense for elementary children. It was always, locker rooms and all kinds of dungy nooks and crannies that didn't make sense. So we're really excited about being able to really purge 72 and redesign. You can see this fence here. Again, we have a courtyard that the students will be able to utilize this side of it, but the fence will block them from all of the construction site. And then we've got visitor parking here. We've got a little bit of staff parking and there. So it'll be tight next year, but we figured it out. And I think if you go to the second slide, Preston, that just gives you an idea of how we manage. This was a lot of creativity. I want to thank Heidi Hansen. She came in as a new principal this year and stepped right into as though she had been here forever. But you'll see all of our kids. We've got kindergarten, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade. There are a couple temporary walls being built to allow that. Our cafeteria will be where we used to do our board meetings. We won't be serving hot lunch because we won't have a hot kitchen, but and then we've got 4th grade up here, 5th grade out here, PE. This is a temporary wall so that we have a staff workroom and a place for staff to eat. Our special ed room is maintained in the same place. Our library is maintained but limited a little bit in size. And then our counselor has a space. Ms. Hansen and her team they're taking over what was the superintendent district office, which will have the principal, the nurse, and her office manager all in that space temporarily for the year. But it's exciting because we've been able to keep everybody together in one zone. And then This is a year project. So next year, construction's beginning probably by the end of summer after asbestos is mitigated and after this building is being demolished to the bones. So all of these walls and things will be taken out and the foundation and the retaining walls that are necessary will stay, but otherwise it's really being redesigned inside. Then at the end of August 2023, fall 23, we hope to open up with the next slide. And while that's pulling up, I can talk a little bit about our process. So as Susan said, I came in new to Ridgway this fall, and I know and recognize there's a lot of work that happened before this year, even to get the mill levy and bond and the ideas for the renovation planned. So it was really exciting to come in, and right away in November, when we got the mill levy and bond passed, we got to work right away. We had an executive team who selected our owner's rep, our architect, and FCI, who is our construction company. And within that team, they guided us on the best ways to get our community together to get input on the design of the school. So we had something called the DAG, the Design Advisory Group, and we sent out the invitation to parents and community members and teachers. And we had a team of about 15 people, including 3 parents, 3 staff members, and board members. And we met about every other week for the first few months to really get the big picture idea of what the school would look like. So each week, as we said, Christine, who's our lead architect, she would listen carefully to all of our ideas, present ideas for us as they redesign many schools, and then she'd get busy work. The next meeting, we'd look at it again and make adjustments. We finished up our design advisory meetings around the winter break. And so right around that time, then we had user groups where every group or team of teachers within our school had the chance to meet with our architect to give specifics to their areas. So again, Christine would listen carefully to them, redesign, present another option. We actually had 2 rounds of user groups, so all of our teachers had a chance to get input at the beginning, then give some refinements going along. So really proud of the process and how all of our teachers had a voice in what the school would look like. And then we also had our students involved as much as we could. The students really took part in naming many of the areas. You'll see when we show you a little video. We wanted to make sure that our current 3rd graders, who will be our first group of 5th graders to have the school, had some voice in what the school would look like. So they did some work around designing our outdoor spaces and working with their teacher, Christy Sabo, presented all different ideas. They actually had one-on-one Zoom meetings with our architect to present their ideas about what the outdoor spaces should look like, which is great to give them voice and have them practice their oral presentation skills with the architects. And then our current 4th graders, who unfortunately will not be in the school, they'll be moving to middle school at that time, they were able to participate in naming of the different areas of the school. So you'll see as we show you the video, for example, the cafeteria will be called the Cave. And they've come up with some really unique names that also represent our community. So with that, we can look at what the school looks like. Here is, you imagine the picture that you just saw, so that area that was all the red check marks, you can see what our school would look like. It was interesting working with the architects when they told us, we're not just planning a school for a year from now, we're planning a school for 30 years from now. So that gave us a lot of conversation of what it should look like. Currently, we have 1 homeroom per grade level, except for in 5th grade, we have 2 homerooms. So we're thinking about how many spaces do we need for each grade level. So after much discussion, we decided to come around this pod idea. So in the upper left-hand corner, you can see this is the kindergarten 1st grade pod. So for every 2 grade levels, we have 3 homeroom spaces. So this gives us space if we were to increase in our enrollment, we have space for our students here. If we are not using that space, that provides a nice flex space for those 2 classrooms to use. So we have a K1 pod, a 2-3 pod, and then our 4th and 5th graders will be in the space that we're utilizing next year. So next summer, that will be the last area that gets the final tweaks to the renovation, and they'll have some great learning spaces there. Again, using the expertise of our architects, we're able to look at what the spaces outside of the classrooms look like, both inside the building and outside of the building. So we have these great nooks where we could have pull-out groups, or students could work on special projects right outside of their classrooms. We have glass garage doors that you can see right out into the hall. So if a teacher wanted to send a group of kids to work on a project, they have the space and the supervision. And we're very excited that our preschool students will be moving into the building. Currently, they're in the building right to the south of our building. And so it'll be so nice. There'll be the classrooms that are right when you walk in. And they'll really, even though they've been close to us, having us under the same roof will really feel like we're one school. So we're excited about that. And then finally, our learning spaces. Every classroom will have a dedicated outdoor learning space. As part of the culture of Ridgway Elementary School is really to take in the outdoors and have outdoor learning for our students.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that opportunity with the preschool. In the original, when we applied for the BEST grant, we got a $7.6 million BEST grant. So our voters have sort of a 2-for-1 for every, but the original plan was going to be to put, this was going to cost $500,000 to just put a connector hall that was going to connect the preschool. And when we went through the design process, the architect said, well, the one group of people that are in your building that don't need to be in your building was the district office. So sad, but true. You know, this area here, this 4th grade classroom is going to be amazing. This used to be that district office, and then the district office will be a separate building. So it did totally make sense, and to be able to bring that preschool in and then not spend that money on what was going to be sort of an awkward long hall, and to have our youngest learners really close to the, you know, admin corridor there, et cetera, was actually a huge win, and exciting to see that work.
Maybe we can jump to our video and you can see an idea of what our space is like, presented by our architects. And again, they told us, they kept saying that even though this is a renovation, our goal is that it's a school you won't recognize.
Oh, put that carbon study, oops, sorry, you know, so just because it's Ridgway, I want to make sure to put a shout out to our carbon footprint. When we did the strategic plan, we looked really hard at, do we move the elementary up to the secondary, which we have wetlands up there, so we don't have a lot of space there. Do we knock down 72 and build new? There were a lot of ideas, and money in the end helped decide a lot of it. But one of the things that was a positive by choosing to renovate versus knocking the entire 72 down and building brand new, you can see sort of the CO2 carbon study there. If we had built a new elementary, what it would cost versus the renovation. We do have some solar in the alternative backup of the plan. We're waiting to see what, again, where we'll be able to afford and what kind of electric use the new building will use. It will be considerably more efficient than the old. And we've worked a lot with San Miguel Power over the years in Rock, looking at our energy use in the old building. We found out in the renovation, there were spaces where we've been heating the outdoors. There was no insulation in certain sections of the roofing. So there's some really some great savings that will help as well. Now, sorry. I'm impressed you do this press and just ignore that.
Video will give you a quick look through and then sort of a fly through of these areas. Obviously, that will be our new front entrance, new district office, and a wide open cafeteria that gives us lots of space in light. This will be our new gymnasium with those glass doors like I spoke of to really bring light into the space. Our gymnasium will now be an elementary specific gymnasium. We'll still be able to have middle school practices if needed, but a little change from the huge space that we haven't been utilizing. Here's some outdoor learning spaces. Like I said, our third graders helped us design the back of the building, which will be where our gym is. We'll do a little bit of work out front to help us with keeping our students safe, arrival and dismissal. And then you get a fly through into the space as you're entering the front door, which will be in a similar spot to where it is currently. And then the district office space again to the south. We need music to this.
I know.
So you can see, we'll of course have a secure vestibule where our office manager who's entering and leaving this building and walking right in. Our preschool buildings or classrooms will be there on the left and our cave cafeteria there. And then this is, if you walked right into the front of the building and took immediate right, all the main office spaces will be there with some nice workrooms and conference rooms. And again, these outside of the classroom learning spaces for our students. That's the second and third grade breakout space. And then we'll head into the pod. That's our second and third grade classrooms. And you can see they're set up. So the classrooms are right there. And then again, this great learning space if students wanted to spill out from their classrooms. And then it takes us to our courtyard that we utilize a lot right now, and then especially with these upgrades, I know we will be out there even more with our students. And this is looking back at the main entrance of the school. So those preschool classrooms there to the right. Sorry, in our gymnasium, I got turned around there. And we utilize the climbing wall currently in our gym. So an add alternate on our plan is also to add the climbing wall to our new space. And we're hopeful that we will get that in place, if not the first year, soon after. And this will take us into a kindergarten room so you can see what the classrooms look like. Our next step will be to look at furniture and what we'll have in there. But again, with our pre-K, K, and first grade students, they have this amazing outdoor learning space, which is just backs up to our current playground. So it will be very easy for our teachers to take our students right outside to extend their learning and have the wonderful outdoors that we have here in Ridgway. What, any questions or comments that you have for Susan or myself?
I do have a couple questions. I know that you said that there's no hot lunch provided. Is there a lunch option provided, especially for, the free and reduced lunch kids who might not have the most food stability at home?
Yes, of course. So any student who qualifies for free or reduced lunch will have a sack lunch provided. Next year, we've done that this year on our Friday, so we have great practice with that. And now the rest of the students will be asked to bring their lunch for next year, which I think is the biggest downside of the entire project. There's some gasps with our families. So if anyone wants to go into business, school lunches, I think that would be a good market.
Yeah, next year I was thinking of food trucks are out there.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's just for the year, and then the following year we'll be back to being able to have a hot lunch program.
Perfect, thank you. And then the other question, and this is more just a fun question. Do the glass garage doors go up so you can utilize that entire space?
Yes.
How cool.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
We've had a lot of conversations around garage doors, believe it or not, and if we should paint the bottom or the top, and how, we want classrooms to feel safe and secure and also have the privacy they need, but also so much of it brings in light. We've been in the current elementary school, there is no light, no natural light, except for if you're right next to tiny windows in the classroom. So those garage doors really help bring in the light into our classroom spaces, natural light.
Is that why the cafeteria is called the cave?
Exactly, it is kind of inside, right? The only place that doesn't have,
Yeah.
but we have lots of, what do they call them, the tubes, the light?
Oh,
tubes?
yeah, there's the solar
Yeah,
tubes.
solar
And so in that back area of the second, third grade, they've got a number of them there to bring in more light because that is the darkest corner of the building. Yeah.
It seems like you've done a lot of work with the daylighting.
Yeah,
With
and we've
That's
seen a study. I mean, we had, Landon showed us the original design versus this design, and it was amazing how much more daylight with those engineering technology is amazing that you can actually do that and show that. So it was considerable. I don't remember the figures, but it was 3 times more light than has been there before.
Yeah, no, that was glaringly true in the images here. I remember when they were doing Denver projects, the big arenas, they were saving on the order of $1 million a year by integrating the daylighting. For the facilities.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
just with that, just being able to, even with LEDs, that
Yeah.
becomes invaluable, and also for the indoor outdoor space.
No, and we
I wanna go back.
outfitted, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, LED, we put in LED lighting throughout the whole building a few years ago with support from Rock. And it will again be LED, but the natural light, and particularly in the gym in those dark corners, it's a tremendous difference.
And I did have one other question for you. Are you all set?
I'm good.
Um,
Thank you.
In the courtyard there for winter use, and snow mitigation and all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure that was thought about by the architects as well.
And we also had Shane, our director of maintenance, and we had our custodians on a user group, so they provided lots of information about snow removal and ice removal. And there's, you didn't see super well in the video, but they're really having some of these awnings in the transition areas will be helpful for us as our students move across that space and into that space.
And in the roofing, they put designs so that you don't end up with that giant buildup. Because it isn't, there's that north facing, but then we still will keep some of the shade sails because we also use it this, in May and June, it gets rather hot, but some of the concrete will be removed and it'll be more natural. The kids, that was interesting in their design, they just wanted to keep it simple. They wanted trees. It was just, they didn't need fancy stuff and, which was good because that was less less costly. So.
And a few animals and some water
Oh,
slides.
yeah.
And sorry, I was looking back at my earlier notes. One other question, the images that you had there, and you said FCI is doing the build. As far as the staging grounds and the envelope, that's all within. I was just looking on Google Maps really quickly. It looks like you're lucky that you have a lot of space. So everything can be contained on there.
Yeah, we're right up against, as you look at it, we're right up against the highway. We're still actually in the process of finalizing our property line with CDOT because I just noticed CDOT has a lot of equipment out and that's with the old high school parking lot. So I know that is all school property, but we want to, we're trying to get that surveyed really accurately. Because that could be a spill out parking lot years later where the preschool parents or other parents for events could park there and walk down. So we, any extra space would be great. But we are up against the highway and none of the land, we've had a geotechnician assess all of the soil behind the school and none of that, you can't build on any of that. So I think we're maximizing what our buildable land as best we can. Which is why we held on to our playing field. And that was a request by another organization. Need it.
Anybody else? Any other questions up there?
It's a beautiful land.
Oh, I was just wondering about the building materials on the outside. Are you doing wood and brick and?
No, the exterior, what is that exterior? I know. It's something that's not wood.
Or brick.
Yeah, it's
Is it zinc cladding?
it's some kind of
Yes.
cladding.
Because that's
Yes,
kind
yes,
of become a
exactly.
standard for schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are recladding the district office space. There was talk about, could we get by, could we repaint it, could we? But in the end, in order to put in windows and structures, et cetera, it was just easier to reclad the entire, and then it would create, we want to create that sense of unified space. So that was also really important.
Is that a washable thing, cladding? Like if you want to
Yeah,
get it in, you
yeah,
spray it
yeah,
down.
you can spray it down. Yeah. No, and I think that was another thing. I mean, a lot of the materials, obviously with young children, so what are kid friendly, but having our maintenance team dig in deeply was also really important. Thank you. Yeah, no, there's a lot of exciting detailed features. We have information up on our website. We're renovating our website too, though. So in about a month and a half, you'll see a new fancier looking website than the old dilapidated version. But there is, right on the front page, it says elementary renovation. You can click it and we'll keep our owner rep reports to the board every month. When school's back in session, we'll have highlights, monthly, pictures, and the kids, I know FCI is excited to share with the kids when, when arranged with Heidi. And yeah, we want to keep the community abreast of it all, and then certainly celebrate when it's time to cut that ribbon and open it. But I think it's been long overdue. As someone whose children graduated from high school when that was the high school, and now have grandchildren in that building, I'm super excited. I think the community has, you look at just having done that innovation housing tour, it's like, okay, our elementary school needs to keep abreast with everything else going on. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to call on you.
Go ahead.
No.
Hi, Ina. I was wondering if you will be taking this opportunity to provide accessible gender neutral bathrooms for the students.
Yeah, definitely. We have right next to our cafeteria, there'll be a line of individual stalls that all of our students will use. So there's no need to identify any gender on them. They'll just be individual stalls for our students. In order to get our permit, there's a little work that we need to do of when it's built, and then what we need to do to basically take down some walls before we open the building. But there's a set of, I think it's 5 or 6 individual stalls. Sort of like a,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it was also really nice in this design because you've always had to have separate admissions for teachers, because, and now in this design, it actually diminishes the total number of restrooms as well. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Good question. And
Great
you can't
question.
see that in the flyby.
Anybody else have any other questions? Well, this is really awesome presentation. Obviously, really well thought out. Impressed with all the work you've done and getting everybody involved. And looks really good. Look forward to the progress. So
We're
thanks so
excited
much.
to take you all on the tour.
Yeah, yeah,
Wait to see it.
yeah, no, totally. But don't go up there right now. Right now, it's closed.
Wait a year.
To the public while they mitigate. And it should not be, I think, the impact in terms of our roads in the town, because we are on the edge, and the way, I mean, FCI is a great team to work with. So I don't think you'll see any heavy impact to the town streets or anything like that.
Fantastic.
And maybe someday when the town hall is getting redesigned, those third graders will be whatever grade
Yes,
or professionally badged at that point. So
exactly.
glad they were-
They'll give you lots of suggestions.
Yeah.
Especially the water slide.
Yes.
I know. That was a highlight for the architect. I mean, watching them do their one-on-one Zoom meetings with their design ideas was pretty.
That must have been a very cool opportunity for the students and the design crew. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah, they'll remember it. And then they also said goodbye to that building. We have a great video if you go to that same website called
The final countdown.
The Final Countdown. And there's teachers and kids, and there's graffiti on the walls, and they're packing the boxes and saying goodbye. So if you want a good laugh, go to our website, click on the videos, and you can see the student video that our librarian helped direct. Yeah, all our teachers are rock stars and it's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Thanks so much.
opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have item number 6, proclamation declaring June as Immigrant Heritage Month.
Hello, Council. This is Robin Cascade on Zoom. And so appreciate you honoring Immigrant Heritage Month with this proclamation. And I can just barely catch Ricardo Perez in the Zoom screen. And I just wanted to do a shout out to Hispanic Affairs Project, which Ricardo leads, as we have collaborated with their organization for 3 years doing this. And this council, I know some of you are new, but this council has signed on to the proclamation for 3 years running. And so we so appreciate it. I wanted, Ricardo, did you want to say anything before I read the proclamation?
Just to say thank you so much for 3 years in a row doing this proclamation. And we are doing it in Ridgway, was yesterday, today here, Crescent View, Gunnison, Grand Junction, Delta, and Montrose. So more city councils, county commissioners are joining us to celebrate the U.S. immigrant identity. It's not for Hispanic, it's not for African Americans, it's for everyone in this country who are immigrants or descendants of immigrants. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricardo. So appreciate the work that you do. So I don't know if it's customary for someone from council to read the proclamation or if I should go ahead and read it.
It's up to you.
It's up to me. I'll let you go ahead and read it if you'd like.
Okay, thanks. I have it pulled up on the screen.
Okay.
A proclamation declaring June 2022 as Immigrant Heritage Month. Whereas America is, always has been, and always will be a nation of immigrants, it was the premise of our founding, it is reflected in our Constitution, it is etched upon the Statue of Liberty that, quote, from her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, end quote. During National Immigrant Heritage Month, we reaffirm and draw strength from that enduring identity and celebrate the history and achievements of immigrant communities across our nation. And whereas across each generation throughout our history, wave after wave of immigrants have enriched our nation and made us better, stronger, more innovative, and more prosperous. And whereas we join people around the globe in commemorating World Refugee Day, a day when we recognize the courage and humanity of the millions forced to flee violence, persecution, and war. It is also a moment to honor the generosity of communities welcoming refugees and the bravery and dedication of humanitarian workers who provide life-saving assistance, often in challenging and dangerous conditions. And whereas the United States, because of the Constitution, is a beacon of hope for people over the globe seeking a better life and peaceful future. And whereas immigration enhances Ridgway's cultural diversity as foreign-born individuals add to the variety of languages, customs, and cuisines enjoyed in our town. And now, therefore, I, Mayor John Clark, and the Ridgway Town Council do hereby recognize the month of June as Immigrant Heritage Month in the town of Ridgway. And I call this observation to the attention of our residents and encourage them to learn more about the social and economic impact of immigrants to our community and state. And in keeping with that last line, I'd just like to share that in contemplating addressing you this evening, I thought about all the people I know in our community who are immigrants, and they are teachers and ranch hands, musicians, architects, nonprofit leaders, healers and healthcare professionals, creatives, small business owners, grocery and food service workers, and law enforcement. Some of you that were on council last year, you got to hear from Giovanni, his experience. I'd also say as a retired teacher, I know firsthand the contributions of immigrant youth to the learning environment in our district, and it's invaluable. And so without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you. It's my honor to introduce you to Margaret Emerson, an immigrant in our community who's going to give you a little bit of her family story. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Hello, I'm Margaret Emerson. I live on Log Hill, and I want to tell you my immigrant story. So in 1971, my parents and I defected from what was then still communist Poland. They managed to procure a passport to leave the country as a family, which was no easy feat then because the communist government usually didn't allow entire families to leave the country. The official paperwork stated that we were going to Italy for vacation, but as soon as we crossed the border into the free country of Austria, my parents asked for political asylum. We lived in a refugee camp for 6 months before my parents were accepted into the United States, where my mother's aunt and uncle already emigrated decades earlier. My parents didn't tell anyone they were leaving Poland, not even their parents. They had to be discreet because people would snitch on one another and report to the authorities if anyone had plans to defect. Once they arrived safely at the refugee camp, they called their parents back home to say goodbye, not knowing if they would ever see any of them or their family or friends ever again. My parents wanted a better life for themselves and for me. In Poland at the time, there were still bread lines. My father couldn't advance in his job as a shipyard engineer unless he joined the Communist Party, which he didn't want to do because he'd have to give up practicing his religion. My mother ran a beauty salon and had become victim to corrupt government agencies that would fine her for her health violations unless she gave them frequent bribes that made it impossible for her to survive financially. You were allowed to have a small business, but if you were too successful, you were fined, shut down, pestered, and generally hassled into failure. There was almost no way to get ahead in communism. If you were employed, you barely made enough money to survive, and you could only live where the government allowed you to live, even if you had to cram into a one-room apartment with your entire family. Corruption was rampant. There was a black market in everything from food to clothes to American dollars. My parents were prepared to give up everything they had for freedom and opportunity. We eventually ended up in Detroit, then moved to San Diego after I graduated from high school. I attended San Diego State University and then got a master's degree at Naropa in Boulder. I've enjoyed a career in graphic design and professional writing. I'm a published author. My father ended up owning a successful car repair business, and my mom also enjoyed owning her own salon here in the United States. They did see their parents again because they were able to have them visit for 6 months at a time. They even helped their siblings and their kids emigrate to the US over the next several decades. They all had a good life here, and I'm grateful for the sacrifices they made so I could enjoy freedom and opportunity here too. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you this evening. So thank you again for signing on. So appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
We do need a motion and vote for the proclamation.
Okay, can I get a motion? To approve the Immigrant Heritage Month.
Motion to approve declaring June as Immigrant Heritage Month in Ridgway.
Second. Moved in second, roll call vote.
I can do that, but it's not necessary.
That's true.
Yeah,
Everybody's
there's no one
everybody's
on
here,
the
so
Zoom, so.
all those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're good to go. All right. Item number 7, application for a special event permit. Voyager Youth Programs. Just need any introduction.
I think that the application that the Voyager Director Alex Roman talked about. Should represent that.
Tara, I'm on the call, but I don't have much of a voice.
So I'm one of the volunteers on there. I'd like to invite Alan to join me. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Helen McCardle, and I'm one of the members of the Ridgway County Pride Planning Committee, along with several others in the room. So we are hosting another annual Pride event in Hartwell Park on July 9th. between 1 and 5 p.m. and would like to invite anyone who would like to support Pride to come. And then we have a Pride proclamation we would like to share. And if you want to read it, or I can read it.
I'm pretty experienced at this. I did it last year, so. You want to do that now? Or,
Sure, yes.
So I think we should take up the special event application first.
and then we'll go to the proclamation. Okay. All right. And so I guess we've got all the details here.
So this is an event to use town park, and it requires council approval for the first 2 years of an event, and after that can be done at the staff level. So that's why it's before you tonight, second.
Okay. Any comments from the council?
Does it seem like anything, any power is needed, any kind of staffing? Seems pretty clean, cut and dry. Correct? Yeah, sweet.
I think there is some power. They had some mics last year, but nothing crazy. Cool, yeah. Okay,
I'll move to approve the application for special event permit. Seconded.
all right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
That was smooth.
Easy for me to say.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, and then there's the proclamation. Proclamation supporting the second annual Uray County Pride Celebration. Whereas the town of Ridgway is home to people of all ages who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, two-spirit, and more. And whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And whereas the town of Ridgway's 2019 master plan is community value 2, sense of community and inclusivity as one of the 5 primary values emphasized by the community and states. Looking to the future, residents would like to see Ridgway remain a diverse and inclusive community, not one that is homogeneous and unwelcoming of others. And whereas the town of Ridgway strives to encourage, celebrate, and sustain innovation and creativity in our community, including the varied lifestyles of creative individuals who hope to thrive here. And whereas Ridgway Town Council honors the history of the LGBTQIA2S+ liberation movement and supports the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQIA2S+ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas LGBTQIA2S+ people have made immeasurable contributions to cultural, civic, and economic successes of our country. And whereas the fabric of our community is strengthened by inclusion, equity, justice, and love. And whereas celebrating LGBTQIA2S+ pride influences awareness, and provides support and advocacy for Uray County's LGBTQIA2S+ community. It is an opportunity to increase visibility, take action, and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Ridgway Town Council hereby proclaims its support for the second annual Uray County Pride Celebration on July 9, 2022, in support of the LGBTQIA2S+ community. We have further resolved that a pride flag will be raised at the town hall on July 9, 2022 in honor of the celebration. This proclamation will be permanently posted in town offices in such a way for all the public can easily view it. The witness hereof will lie. So,
I move to pass the proclamation supporting the second annual Uray County Pride Celebration.
Seconded.
moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Sweet.
Thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Are there any other stories you want to share?
Hi, I'm Sean Taplin. I'm also on the planning committee and I also work at Voyager Youth Program. And I grew up here in Ridgway since I was 3. So having a Pride event here means a lot because I'm non-binary and otherwise queer. So having the Pride event means a lot, and having such support from the government for that event means a real lot. To have it be openly stated that this is part of the community here means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're valued and seen part of our community. Thank you.
Well stated.
Please.
I'm Nick Coleman. I'm a business owner here in town and a relatively new resident. I was raised in Montrose, Colorado, went to high school, junior high there. I came out in Montrose, Colorado in junior high and high school, and it was not friendly. I lived in LA for 35 years, and that was a relatively safe place to live. 3.5 years ago, I decided to move back here. And there was some trepidation, wondering what I would meet when I came back to my home, which Colorado is. And I came here to Ridgway and found this amazing community. And then they had this Pride Festival last year, and I thought, this is what it should be. This is what we need to be espousing and showing our kids growing up. I'm 60 and wish I had had this when I was 18 or 16 or 14. It would have made a world difference. So I thank you guys for being as supportive and wonderful as you are. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, in order to keep moving forward, let's move on to agenda item number 9. Application for special event permit. Vicky online with us?
No, I don't see her online.
I can just take it.
Okay.
So the town received a application for a special event permit to use the town right of way to assemble and do an approved and organized march. Sorry, reading off this because not much about it. The march is to bring awareness to gun violence. And Preston, do you remember that?
No, I think that captures it. We were really hoping that the applicant would be here to talk more specifically about their plans for, I guess, logistics for the event.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. This is Vicky Green.
Hi, Vicky.
I'm here on Zoom. Yeah, hi there.
All right, so we're just looking at your application. You want to kind of spin us up on what's happening?
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say thanks because I know that this application was kind of speeded along, at least for an initial look for the council. And I appreciate that because this march or event is being held under the umbrella of the national organization called March for Our Lives. And they sprung into action really quickly after the Uvalde shootings, and they have, a framework to do that. That organization was created in 2018 by the survivors of the Parkland, Florida shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. So it's a big organization, and they immediately got into gear with organizing national events, Washington DC first of all, and then I saw that there was an event being held in Dallas or in Denver, pardon me, and then you know, I saw that there were local events popping up all over, but the nearest one that I saw to Ridgway was I think Edwards, and you know, somebody said, why don't we do one here? So that I got the application in as soon as I could, but the time was pretty compressed. So I appreciate you looking this over, you know, before it was actually, you know, time. And it's given us time to, or me, time to get a little bit of organization done. So hopefully we can have gotten the word out.
Okay. And the intent is.
So
that go ahead.
Say again.
Go ahead.
The permit and the intent of the activity for the day, it's pretty brief. It's from 11 to 12 with the meeting or assembly point at the gazebo in Hartwell, and then after a few brief remarks mostly regarding March for Our Lives and the, you know, their purpose and their national work. We would just take the sidewalk from the gazebo out to Sherman and just position ourselves, you know, along Sherman. People are encouraged to bring signs and posters, but there's no real presentation or program scheduled. It's a rally, and to be quite honest with you, since there's no registration required, I don't have any sense of what the attendance might be. But that's the extent of it, from the gazebo out to the sidewalk, and the time frame being from 11 to 12.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Hope you can get the word out. Maybe Plain Dealer can do something online and other online
Yeah,
sources.
I've been regularly posting, regularly in the last week, posting notices on Uray County Facebook, Ridgway's Facebook, Next Door, and some other Western Slope, you know, Facebook pages that I think, you know, might reach people. So that's the extent of the outreach, but I have had some response, and I'm hoping that everybody who has responded will bring a friend or, you know, family member, somebody, their kids. It would be great to have a visible presence out there for this.
Okay. Are there any national representatives from March for Our Lives, or do we anticipate this to be mostly a local Western Slope?
This is strictly local. The extent of the support from March for Our Lives is they, if I had gotten signed up earlier, and that was one of my reasons for hoping that I could expedite the approval process with the town, because they wouldn't even include us on their national register of events until we had approval from whatever the local authority was, you know, for the use of the site. So, but they do provide support in the way of, they've had a couple of Zoom calls and some basic March guidelines that they've used in the past. They had a very large march in 2018, hundreds of thousands of people, and they're hoping for that nationwide again, of course. But it's pretty much, you know, a solo event as far as this goes here in Ridgway, but with their full backing and under their sort of their informal guidelines, especially for a small community like this. If larger communities, they provide a lot more support, of course.
Okay.
I have a question for Shane. Shane, any need from your end on increased security based on the agenda or the topic?
We'll increase patrol, and then we'll complete the other
emergencies within the county should the need arise. But other than that, we're okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
I didn't hear, I'm having a hard time hearing, but I understand that was about some sort of informal security. Is that right?
Yeah, we just checked with Marshall Smaltz and he doesn't feel there's going to be any issues, but they will have normal patrol and they'll coordinate with the rest of the county agencies to be aware and on the lookout if anything should arise.
Yeah. Yeah, I sure appreciate that. And I will definitely make it clear, I've made it clear thus far too, in the post that I've put on social media, that of course, all interactions around this event, at least on the part of the attendees, is expected to be civil and orderly, and that should there be, any approach by anyone from outside of the event who may not seem to embrace that same commitment to civility, it's just a, do not engage policy. But I really do appreciate, in light of just the general atmosphere across a lot of the country right now, having some eyes on it. So thanks very much.
Sure thing. Any questions from the public?
Is it just signage they're going to do along the road?
Signage and people, it sounds like, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve the application for special use permit for the March for Our Lives rally, or march, I guess. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. There you go, Vicki. You're all set.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Vicki.
Vicki.
Good turnout.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, hope so too. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to item number 10. Request for sharing the payments for water line repairs and request for water leak adjustment. Any introduction on this?
I'm just going to speak first. You're the staff report.
Can I go?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going. Good evening, I'm Marty O'Leary, and I live at 182 South Juniper on Log Hill. My husband and I own the old firehouse at 185 North Clinton. And in the late summer and early fall of 2020, I noticed that our water bills at the property were abnormally high despite our adherence to the town's watering restrictions then in effect. When our conservation efforts failed to reduce the recorded water usage, I concluded that there must be a leak and acted right away by asking the town's public works to shut off the water supply to the firehouse in November of 2020. The following spring, town staff member Randy Barnes determined that the leak on the property's owner's side Randy Burns determined the leak was on the property owner's side of the meter box, which by town code required the owner to find and repair the leak. We hired a skilled local excavator in the region to find and repair the leak. It turns out that the leak was located 9 feet out from the property line into the center of the public sidewalk on Lena Street, and the actual leak in the line was 9 inches on the owner's side of the meter box. Our excavator found the leak and concluded that the water line was crimped and gradually ruptured from downward pressure caused by the compacted weight of the new sidewalk that was installed at the time of the ramp project finalized in 2018. Repair work commenced in late June 2021, involving excavation and tunneling under the public sidewalk, as well as a removal and replacement of one large section of concrete. The work was completed in mid-July 21, and the repairs ultimately cost $3,600. Our excavator fully documented the leak and with photos and videos. Our town water bill continues to show a past due amount owed of $1,500 related to mostly water loss from the leak. In March of this year, we presented town staff with a well-documented email summary of the water line and our excavator's conclusions as to what caused the leak. In the email, we asked the town to waive the past due amount of $1,500, and in equal appeal for fairness, we also asked the town to split the cost of the repairs made necessary in great measure due to the ramp project. Town staff replied promptly and professionally, but rejected our request, citing the town's municipal code that requires a property owner has responsibility to repair leaks in the line that are on the owner's side of the meter box. We believe that there were extraordinary and extenuating circumstances surrounding this supply line water leak and its delicate and somewhat dangerous repair deep into and under the public right of way. As it is not within the town's staff authority to waive the past due water balance, we are respectively asking town council to waive the past due balance of $1,500 for water loss returned to the water table and never used for commercial purposes. We also ask the town to further consider providing reimbursement or credit to the ownership of the old firehouse for up to 50% of our cost of repairs incurred in July 2021, which totaled $3,600. We bring the council our request for some relief here because we believe it's to be fair. We believe it to be fair and the right thing to do given all the circumstances. Thank you for consideration. No matter what the outcome, we always love and support the Ridgway community. Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Marty?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question on the $1,500. We went through our records, trying to find, I don't have all the paperwork on, but we show the balance due from we gave a leak adjustment. The town gave you a leak adjustment in October for the first leak, right? And then we show from November on, we showed here we go. Water use from November 2020 to March 14, 2022 was $2,249.40, and payments were made for $1,428. That leaves an unpaid balance of $849.12.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where the 1,500.
Well, it's just, all I can base that on is that the balance forward has been, like right now, I just got a bill and it's $1,800. And that is, from past being balance forward.
So, okay, because I showed when I did this report last week that you only owed $849. Yeah, now there was water use that was happening for the landscaping and for the.
Well, right, and I have a whole list from Wanda about
all the payments that were made.
I have a whole list from Wanda of when that, the amount just jumped really high. And I understand that there was a period of time that we were doing the back of the firehouse landscaping. But then it's still, after that was done and we were being very conservative about that, then the amount of the water, our monthly water bill was not going down. And I try to remember, we had tenants there, but they don't use very much water. And it was mostly Lucy's garden in the back part. And then when I saw that the amounts got to be really absorbed, really high, is when I asked, and our tenants had moved out because they were in charge of doing a lot of the watering, that we have the water shut off. But we were still the water was being counted for, et cetera. And there wasn't anybody there and we were not watering that part. So,
So if I think we need to kind of bring it back to the request at hand. So there's two separate requests. One is to waive the remaining or the outstanding balance on the water bill, right? So $800 and something dollars.
Okay.
Second is a request for the town to put half the bill for repairing the service line in 2021, or whenever it was. And in your packet is a staff report from CAM, with a lot of attachments and a lot of references to the town code. Town code section that's very clear about who's responsible for what in relation to meter box and service line. So I just kind of wanted to bring it back to what you all are facing here. So do you have any questions for staff at this point? Or the applicant, of course, or should the applicant?
So we have two separate items that.
Right.
Or just lumped in together.
Right.
So
It
seems to me the issue of the repair is pretty cut and dry based on all of the documented code that I work. So I'd be more inclined to consider some relief on the water bill and not so much the repair, just because it's pretty well documented what that process and procedure is.
Right, and it's also we also have the documentation of the code, knowing the code, but also saying how far out that meter box is and what we had to do in going way down and finding that it was crimped and it was from the grant project. Now, that's just a fact. And we've got it documented, we've got photographs, and if there was some relief on that, that's fine. If there's not, there's not. So that's up to you as a town council to decide.
So I just want to add a couple more things. We haven't been provided staff level anything to substantiate that the grant project did in fact crimp the line and cause that. So just want to get out there and say that. At the same time, in relation to the outstanding water balance, the water adjustment or the leak adjustment was provided in 2020.
Right.
Any additional relief on that would set a precedent that the town has never, town has never done anything beyond that before. So that's something for you all to consider.
And Marty, just so you know, the point I was going to bring up is precisely that. And I mean, it's not a court of law, but de facto in some ways it is. So there's the inference, whether it was Seiko or whoever it was, Travis, came up with the idea, the notion that he attributed it to the settlement of the sidewalks and the ramp project. I wouldn't say that that's concrete.
I understand.
That would be evident. That would be inference, not necessarily evidence. So when I read back through this in the different chapters of this going on, I was like, we can't fully lean on that. And then also in light of the code, anything upstream to you guys, to your property, even though you were 9 feet in the right of way, it's still the onus of the owner. It's an unfortunate thing, but the code reads that way. And so even though when I was reading through this, I was like, well, is there room for sharing expenses on the repairs because it was in the right of the way? I look back at the way the town has had to navigate that in the past, and it's the onus is on the owner. So that's kind of the read I took out of that side of my brain.
Okay.
So I feel like it would be hard, given the fact that we're probably going to see other issues like this coming up.
I imagine anything that's older, i.e. firehouse or, the 610 or anything that is of an older stature, as far as the buildings are, you probably will. And I'm not saying, oh my God, it was a ramp project, but it's just an unusual thing happening. And I guess we're the first one to say, oh boy. So it's fine. I mean, I understand the code and all that stuff, and we're just asking, and that's all. That's all I can say we're doing. So.
If I may say a few words.
Yeah.
The biggest shock when I first joined town council was how often have we cleared water discrepancies. That was a big surprise to me. As somebody who experienced this years before coming on council, from a tree that was in the town right of way, and a root going through my property, I probably would have challenged and come and approach the town, knowing what I know now. I think the town is very generous with water. And I think it's worth noting in this situation that you can't really go outside into Town Park and not see something that the O'Learys have generously contributed to this community. And while that might not exactly mesh with the code right there, I think of the children's park behind the library. I think of the musical instruments right there. I think of the use of the backyard space at the schoolhouse for theater, for child stock, for all of these community-minded events. And that's barely scraping the surface, not even bringing up the gifts to community housing and to all of the things that this, to just their generosity in general to our community. And I understand the code, and I understand owner's side of the box, but I do think it's worth mentioning how much they have given that potentially can be right. And I'm not going to argue. I don't want to argue, and I know that the O'Learys don't want to make this uncomfortable whatsoever, but I do think it's just worth noting. Yeah.
And
recognizing recorded wise in the community and everybody here that whatever happens, this will all go away and nobody's feelings will be hurt, but we do need to recognize and
categorically recognize, if you're categorically recognized at 360 degrees everywhere in town, noted. But reading this, reading in the context of what we're navigating here and knowing the greater good of the community and how town's going to navigate these things going forward, a la what Preston said. I hadn't even thought of it in terms of precedence, but in terms of, and gosh, if, you know, and if I could just reciprocate individually, even a percentage of what you guys have done for the town, I would. But in terms of reading this and knowing what else is coming down the pike and stuff that I've had to navigate and pay for in my own process, I took it on the chin and it sucks.
No, I understand. We're just making an appeal, and that's, you know, we're not saying, oh my gosh. I mean, it's not going to stop us from doing what we want to do in this community because we love it. And we're able to help out in lots of ways, and that's just what we're about. So we just, you know, put it out there. I understand about, you know, starting something, and it'll be interesting down the line what you guys are all going to encounter sooner or later in one respect or another. And I don't want to set something.
And to back you up on that, living right down the street from the firehouse, I fixed my second water leak in 2.5 years in February of this year by myself. With a mini X breaking through frozen ground. And this summer, I intend to replace the entire water line because it's an old, outdated water line and it wasn't properly installed in the first place.
Yeah.
And so that's just, to me, that's just part of what we have to deal with.
Oh, absolutely.
In late 1800s home.
No,
Or whenever it was installed.
and the firehouse that's been there forever and a day too. So it's just, it is inevitable about those things. But, you know, we just thought, oh, you know, having owned it, well, I don't know, 4 years plus or something like that, was really not, we started our increase because of trying to make that backyard type of thing. And we were grateful that we got to have theater and things back there. And that was just, that's wonderful. And that's all we wanted to do, you know, but, you know, it's just kind of interesting that it all happened, you know, nothing had happened and then all of a sudden something happened. So it's just a fact of life. And so I appreciate you all listening to me.
And if I may, you know, I hope you know my remarks, and with all due respect, certainly.
Oh,
not
absolutely.
Adversarial.
Absolutely.
But as staff, you know, we have a specific charge.
Yep.
We have to be good stewards. So that's, I just want to.
We
appreciate all you all.
We absolutely agree with that, you know, we may encounter some other things going down the line, et cetera, et cetera. It's just an appeal, that's all it is. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council?
Hopefully we can find a way in the future to honor all of your generous contributions without setting a precedent that would be difficult.
No,
to come back from.
absolutely. I understand 100%.
On that note of like fairness and equity too, going forward with the firehouse project, Pat was in here, either last meeting or last meeting. I mean, the scale where the project's at and everything is super exciting. So where it's all going. And so I think in terms of fairness and equity, I think we've already established that there's going to be a good collaborative process
Yes.
going forward. This just in a different context.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, do we have any additional comments from anywhere? Seeing any? Somebody want to make a motion here?
Yes, I can. I move that we unfortunately have to deny the request for additional compensation on this matter. I don't know what the actual language of the request is.
It says deny the request to contribute in repairs to water line and past due water leak for account number 3300.1 Firehouse Investment LLC. Help you finish.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
So
those
did you
opposed?
lump it all together in one? Is that what you did?
Yes.
Okay, so it's denied. Okay, that's fine.
So,
Vote of 4-1.
4-1, yes, sir. All righty. Moving on from there. This is our public hearing. This is a transfer of stockholder from Star Saloon LLC. Pam?
This is, yes, that's exactly what it says. We have an application for the transfer of stockholder for the tavern liquor license that's held at Star Saloon. The applicant is Star Saloon LLC, and they have changed their corporate structure, and all the holdings now are held by one member, and that's Benjamin Jackson the fourth. Adam Dubroff holds 100% of that now, and he is relinquishing that to Mr. Jackson.
Okay,
This is not changing anything in the application other than changing how they hold it within their own corporation.
right. Okay. Any questions, comments from staff?
It's easy peasy.
Seems okay. Public, anybody in the public, comments or questions?
I don't believe the applicant's here, right, Dan?
No,
We don't see them online.
So because it is a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing, right?
Okay. So I'm not seeing anybody here raising their hands. I'm not seeing anything on Zoom.
Nothing on Zoom.
So, anybody, no comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve the change of corporate structure for Star Saloon LLC. Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, agenda item number 12. Presentation direction approval of updated Heritage Park site plan for strategic master plan for Ridgway Visitor Center and Heritage Park. Tessa. Welcome.
Hello, council people. My name is Tara Wick, and I'm the Community Initiatives Facilitator for the town of Ridgway. Staff person. This is my first time coming before council as a staff member. I've only come before you before as a volunteer, so I'm happy to be here today as staff. I'm almost 6 months into my position. So I I'm presenting today about the Heritage Park master plan redesign, as you read. Just to give you a quick update, there's a lot of details in the packet if you've had a chance to review those, which I'm sure you have. We've been in this process now with Heritage Park for a number of years. In 2019, there was a master plan that was funded by the Office of Tourism, Colorado Office of Tourism. Soon after that, the train cars were removed from Heritage Park. That was really the heritage focus of the park, was our railroad heritage, as I'm sure you remember, with the memorabilia and the Railroad History Museum in the current visitor center and the car on the site. When that was removed and brought over to the current site of the Railroad Museum, kind of left the park without a kind of thematic focus and a heritage focus. And just kind of like, okay, now where do we go with this? And so there was, before I came on board in, let's see here, well, first there were some upgrades done to the park. So as I'm sure you're aware, irrigation, some landscaping, some trees were planted, some picnic tables, those kind of upgrades were done. And then a community input process happened in 2021 for 6 months to get the community sense of what direction do we want to go with this park, it was a very small park. It's very prominent visually as the entrance to our town. So it's important that it be something that represents our community the way we want to be represented. It's also the home to the visitor center at the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce. So we want to make sure we're working in partnership with the chamber so that it will meet their needs and the needs of their volunteers. So when that process was completed, there was a list of recommendations. Many of them, all of them are reflected in the new master site plan, the concept plan that we'll be presented with today. There was an addition to kind of structural issues that were recommended, like bathrooms, accessible bathrooms, those kinds of things. There was also a recommendation that heritage be lifted up within the site as part of the heritage that we wanted to recognize, knowing that though this is the ancestral land of the Ute people, we don't have anything visually in our community that recognizes that heritage of our place. And so then DHM Design, who you'll hear from shortly, Walker Christian and his team, with funding from Colorado Main Street, completed the plan, the revised concept plan. And I, as the community initiatives facilitator, also solicited input from community members about some of the initial ideas that Walker brought to us. And I think we had 11 people that weighed in, including the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce director through their board, previous director. I feel like we've got a lot of great input. Some of council members participated in that as well. And then Walker and his team took that feedback and integrated it into the design that he will present to you today. The feedback that I've got from it, from people I sent it back out to who were involved in the stakeholder process, has mostly been like, great, this looks great. It really, my sense as a staff member was that he really hit on and really responded to the feedback from the community really well. There's one of the pieces was around kind of orientation of the site, thinking about vectors like wind and snow and how do we account for those, knowing we have those strong winds in the spring, maximizing the views, so lots of different considerations. So that's what you'll see reflected in this presentation. One of the other aspects that wasn't necessarily part of the structural design was how do we honorably represent and include Ute heritage within the site as well. And so I was charged with doing some initial information gathering about Ridgway's area Ute heritage. I went to the Ute Museum and met with CJ Bradford, and I also consulted with Roland McCook, who belongs to the Uncompahgre band of the Ute Indians, and his direct descendant is Chief Uray, and for whom our county is named. So he educated us about the history of the Bruneau Agreement, and it turns out that Sherman Street is actually the survey line for the 1874 Bruneau Agreement, and that right on, this is like maybe, Preston, would you be kind enough to go to the cultural consultation section of the attachment? There's just a quick map I just want to show you. In consultation with Mr. McCook, we recognize that there actually is a significant amount of cultural heritage on that site, which completely surprised me. That particular piece of ground had some heritage to it that was worth noting, and a story that hasn't really been told in our community, and that's not really common knowledge. And so I want to just refer you to the map. Okay, there we go, great. So I'll just walk over here so you can see, because I don't have the point. Oh, perfect. So this is Heritage Park right there. And this little spot here was called 4 Mile Square. And so north of this line was youth reservation, so pretty much most of Ridgway, where it belongs to the people and was kept in for the tribe, including this space because the Uncompahgre people were named for, it was Uncompahgre means red lake, red water, and they were named for the hot springs that we now refer to as Orbis Hot Springs. And so that was actually negotiated. It was taken out and then it was put back in, and President Grant got involved and it was negotiated for the people. Of course, in 1881, the people were removed from the land, and so they lost it all anyway. But I just wanted to point out that that's a significant story in terms of the history of the spot. And so that was interesting to me. I reached out to the the state level historic preservation office to ask how communities typically go about preserving or recognizing tribal heritage within a place. And they directed me to the tribal cultural preservation office. There are 3 tribes, 2 within Colorado and 1 within Utah that are Ute tribes. And the Utah reservation is where the people from this area primarily were relocated. And so that you'll see that reflected in the recommendation today would be that that the Tribal Historic Preservation Office provides an avenue for consultation, government to government, between local municipalities, federal state offices directly with tribes in areas of cultural significance. And so that seems to be the appropriate avenue to pursue in terms of consulting with tribal members about how we might in the future, and we have a lot of steps to do as well about the construction of the site, but how we might be able to consult with them to develop the interpretive materials down the line. One of the pieces I found in terms of best practices was that it's best to start early in terms of relationship building early in the process, so that there's time to develop trust and rapport along the way, and really take the tribal council's guidance of the timeline that works for them. So that's where you'll see the recommendation to initiate from our government to the tribal government, the request for consultation. So just want to explain that. And then from here, I want to pivot to introduce you to Walker Christensen, who's going to present the actual design. And yeah, take from there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
What was the basis for it originally being referred to as Heritage Park? Was it the railroad?
I was wondering that too, and I couldn't find an answer. I'm not sure. I was just telling myself a story that it had to do with the railroad part, but I wasn't able to find that. Maybe we can go back to it.
That sounds.
Do you know, Pam?
The name was given by Ridgway Community Pride. They used to hold the land. They actually held the deed to that little parcel of land in the very front of where the railroad cars were. So that actually was Heritage Park, like that tiny little piece of land. The car, I don't know what they call that car from True Grit movie. Used to sit there, and then it was fenced and it had some landscaping. And that was Heritage Park, that tiny.
That's helpful. So it was kind of our film heritage, Western film
and
heritage.
then when Ridgway Community Pride dissolved, they gave the town the deed to that property, and the town already owned the property behind it all the way back to the Ingos Ranch.
Okay.
Because this this discovery, your communications kind of get renewed and poignant, purpose to the name of the park. I think it should be really highlighted.
I think so too. Yeah, and when Mr. McCook consulted with Walker, he got pretty excited when we pulled up this map, because he remembered he'd seen maps that showed that line, and then when we saw it on there, he was like, wow, this story of this 4 Mile Square and this piece of history and these congressional acts that led to this is not told anywhere else. And so he got pretty excited about the idea of that being highlighted in a community. And he actually was participating in the Rural Philanthropy Days that's been happening here, and he was invited by Rural Philanthropy Days to do a land acknowledgement at the beginning of the session, right, alongside Preston in his welcoming remarks. And it occurred to me when he did that, that this would be in a way a physical land acknowledgement for our community as people enter the community to just recognize the history that we have here. And when I spoke to some staff of History Colorado, they said there are potential funds that could support this as well. And certainly a condition of that would be to be in consultation with the appropriate way. So, yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. All very exciting.
Does that involve any renaming? Is this a common trend these days, especially of place names and peaks and rivers?
Renaming hasn't come up. I would think that if we consulted with the tribes, if they do agree to consult with us and they choose to do that and they suggest a place name, I would imagine that council would entertain that. But we hadn't gotten there. I think Heritage Park, my personal opinion is that it's a fairly generic name and that it can refer to a lot of different kinds of heritage, so it remains appropriate. It's my sense, but of course that would be a council decision if we wanted to change that. So.
Anything else, a new emphasis?
What's interesting is that it was called Uncompahgre Park. Like the name of the Ute Reservation north of that line was referred to as Uncompahgre Park in the treaty itself. And I linked to the treaty and like you can get deep. I went deep. Preston had to be like, come on, Derek, I'm gonna go. Come on back out of the rabbit hole because there's a lot to learn. And so I linked to a lot of resources in your packet if you want to educate yourself.
Thank you so much for including all that information. It was completely good. I know about the RV people being here, and I've read books and things, but I was thrilled that was part of your presentation and part of the packet. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being open about that. It's so cool. Yeah, that's helpful to feel a little bit more grounded in like the entirety of our heritage, and that's part of the Main Street program is to preserve our cultural preserve our heritage of our community. So I think there's potentially an unintentional omission that we can address with this project. Begin to. So.
Cool. So Walker Christensen with DHM Design is on Zoom, and he's going to go through this PowerPoint that he's prepared. Thank you, Tara, so much. And shout out to Tara for all the work that she's done. I mean, tremendous amount of work, so much pieces. I mean, Tara, but everyone else who's put input and helps, been a part of that steering committee or the stakeholder group that helped get us to this point. And then a huge shout out to Colorado Main Street for the technical assistance for essentially putting the bill for this project. Big deal. So I know Tara mentioned that, but wanted to reemphasize that. So Walker, thanks for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Glad to be here tonight. I worked on the original Heritage Park strategic plan back in 2018, I think it was. And knowing that there were some big changes in what was going on with the park. The railroad car moved out. There was the decision to remove the old visitor center building. And so that facilitated the need for relooking at the plan, updating things. Costs have really skyrocketed on a lot of construction items, so revisiting that as well. And so what we have for you tonight is an updated site plan. It doesn't get into as much detail as the strategic plan. It's still building off of that original strategic plan. We just updated the site plan and updated the estimate. We can move on to the next one. It's just a quick overview of the actual site. So just our limits of work. Can go ahead and move on. So some key updates is that the visitor information services, we considered, doing a brand new custom building or, potentially looking at some creative ideas for shipping containers. And that was the direction that we got from the committee that had looked at Heritage Park and how we move forward. One was because it's a sustainable solution and it can be an artistic and creative solution. And it also is a little more cost effective than brand new custom construction. So all those things kind of fit with the, Ridgway character And so that's the direction that we're going, and we'll show you a view of, what the visitor center could look like tonight. We looked at adding accessible restrooms, so ADA restrooms that are standalone, so they can be open even when the visitor center is not. Removal of the existing building, making sure we have a really good large size picnic shelter with shade. And then, like Tara said, incorporation of the initial youth cultural consultation. And that was very, very effective and interesting. And I think a lot of those ideas, there are physical ways that we can implement a lot of the ideas that Roland had. So that's really exciting. How we incorporate public art, and then also including a little bit of storage for parks maintenance. So those are some of the key updates. So with that initial youth cultural consultation, one of the important things was the interpretation and education about the Bruno Agreement. And I'll show you, we have a dedicated area where we're gonna be able to create signage for that. Medicinal and native plants were important, and Roland provided a list of plants and their uses historically and culturally in the Ute culture. So that we have decided that we would like to do a little interpretive garden that focuses on those plants. And then emphasizing the views of the mountains were really important, and signs to identify peaks. And that is something that we were already thinking about, but having him bring that up as well really solidified that was something that I think everyone would like to see. And also allocating space for public art, something that represents the 3 Ute tribes. And that could be something that is a call to artists, or who knows what that is, but providing a space for that. That's what we did on the ramp project, was did a call to artists for local furnishings, and that worked out pretty well. So that could be another way that you approach it in the future. So this is the updated plan, and I'll just go through it really quick with kind of by the number of what's there. Where the old building is where we would have the new accessible restrooms. And then to the right of that, number 2 is the area where we would have interpretive signage that talks about the Bruno Agreement. We'd have bike racks in that same entrance area, ADA parking spaces, a new parking lot that is paved. It has some, I think, 4 spaces for RVs and oversized vehicles. Let's see. We'd add some trees in the parking lot to provide shade. The main pathway that goes through the center, you can kind of see that railroad pattern. And so we're building off of the railroad heritage there. A lot of the signage will work with some of the existing signage that is throughout the historic core of town. Number 9 is in the middle there, and that's a climbing boulder. So a lot of these things came from the original process or were confirmed in the second committee process by the town. So still thought if this is a place where you can attract people right away with the nice landscape and the visitor center building, a lot of people are they're going to get off the road and go to the restroom. And so maybe it's a place where people stretch their legs, kids can get some energy out and have a little playground that's a climbing boulder. We had designed previously some themed informational signs, and those would be, that's item number 10. Those are near the visitor center building, and those tie into different themes that were developed by the Chamber of Commerce. So the content would be updated, but I'll show you some pictures of what that looks like. Number 1819, that is the visitor center building where we have two shipping containers that would be modified so that you could have displays on the inside. You could add doors and windows, have some indoor-outdoor space. And then we've incorporated a large shade structure over that. And on top of that, we have solar panels. So we want the building to be able to be powered by the sun. There would be picnic tables to hang out there, cafe tables, a rooftop patio to take advantage of the view over the racetrack and towards the mountains. As you move towards the interior of the site, number 28 is the area that we've identified as the public art piece that would be something that relates to the 3 Indian tribes. Number 25 is what we're calling the photo opportunity area. And so I have a drawing of that as well, but that is a place where you can get a photo with the mountains in the background and a little Ridgway sign. Also a place that kind of represents the railroad roundhouse and gives people a lot of places to sit. There will be ADA access up to the top of that viewpoint, so people of all abilities will have that same experience. And then between the racetrack and the park is kind of more xeric plants, shrubs, and perennials, so low water, low maintenance areas. Number 23 in the middle, just to the right of the sculpture, is the area that we've identified as the youth medicinal plant garden. So that could have, interpretive signage and identification of some of those plants, which is really interesting. So really it builds off of what's already been done and what's been planned. It's just identified and reconfigured some of the things. Talking about tried to fit the visitor center so it blocks the wind from the south and west a little bit. That causes part of the entrance to the visitor center to be on the north, but that will be a covered area with the shade shelter, so you'll see how that works. So we're trying to balance all of that out. There's potential for, the solar panels may be able to help with snow melt a little bit as well. I think with that, we can kind of move on to the 3D views. So this is the visitor information services, using the shipping containers, recycling those, repurposing those, and incorporating a shade shelter that plays off of the stage, and which is a beloved structure in town. And I think it's really cool to, keep that going. You keep your theme going between parks. You can see the stairs up to the rooftop patio viewing area. The interior could be kind of set up. We don't know exactly what the program for the interior would be yet. So really this is all very conceptual, but that could be set up with displays on the wall so people can move through the space. There would be views opening up to the mountains on the inside and opening up to the plaza on the outside. This is a prefab restroom, and this would have two unisex stalls that are ADA accessible. But we wanted to do something that is a little more instead of just like a Forest Service style restroom, something that fits in with the character of Ridgway a little better. So there's ways that you could do board form concrete and potentially a little bit of corrugated steel on that wouldn't increase the price a lot, but help bring it back into the character that fits with some of the other structures that are in Hartwell Park. This is just a plan view showing the layout of the restroom. These are the themed informational signage. So they play off of the the unique bollards that you have throughout the historic core. And then, there could be lighting within those, and then two-sided signage, and those would be, so if the visitor center can still be closed, but there's also information on the exterior. This is the photo opportunity area, so great spot to get pictures with mountains in the background. Make sure Ridgway is in there. A lot of places to hang out and gather and use that space. The part of the plan that I didn't show you on the plan view is that at some point it would be good to update the monument sign at the entrance and maybe make it a little more double-sided. So we've talked about that before, and you could potentially, this is just a total concept, but something that ties into other signage within the community, but would draw people in from the highway. And all of this is really about, can we draw people? We want this to be visible, be a very inviting space, something that really welcomes you as you first get into town. Example of a large climbing boulder that we're talking about. So still keep having everything feel really natural. And then this is just the example of public art and what came from the community process and the call to artists. So really building off of what's already out there, enhancing the character that is the historic core of the community. Cost estimating, I don't know if you want me to share my screen, Preston, or just kind of give a brief overview of that.
Yeah, Walker, let me give you that ability, and then if you could just give me 1 sec.
Okay.
You should be good to go.
All right, so we updated the cost estimate, and we have things split into, site furnishings, playground area, hardscape and site work, and, have individual items split out, but then also have subtotals. So, the play area could be around 85K, all site furnishings around 50, hardscape. So that includes, doing a paved parking area, and then the concrete sidewalk, plaza, boulders and earthwork, all of that kind of stuff, including lighting as well. It's about 280K. We've got planting and irrigation, about 68K. All of the different signage that we have. So we have the theme signs, gateway signs. Gateway signs can be, that monument sign can be a fairly expensive piece. And then we also have the potential for art and photo opportunity area. So a lot of signage to get people off the highway, and then interpretive signage. That's around 200K. The structures we looked at, we compared a custom built structure to what you can get from the containers, and there's companies that do provide the shipping containers that are in Colorado. But it was much more cost effective to look at the shipping container option. You can add window and door packages to that. The shade structure, bathrooms, all of that together is around 400K. If you did everything all at once, which is probably not likely, but if there are some good grants that come up, then you're looking at, if you hire a general contractor, you have your mobilization, bonding, construction admin, materials testing, fees, all that kind of stuff. And I also put in a 20% contingency. So all of those extra fees can be quite a bit of money. So the total, if you built it all at once, is about 1.6 million. But the beauty of the park and doing a master plan is there's a lot of ways to slice it up and do little pieces at a time. And if there's smaller areas that you do with smaller contractors, then there's potential to save on some of these administrative and overhead fees. But just to give you a big picture view of kind of order of magnitude cost of what that could be. And then we put in a couple just extra things like hydronic heating for the concrete in front of the visitor center, the photovoltaic system, just roughly looking at those numbers to add that in. So that is big picture. And then really what we wanted to do tonight is just get your input, and we're moving to a final updated site master plan by the end of June, which is when our DOLA contract is complete. So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, let's open it up to questions and input.
So I was looking at the chart of what the actual space looks like, and I believe it was number 20. There are, like, it's a grass section, and I'm wondering if those should be, I know this is like getting into very nitty-gritty details and probably putting horse or carts before horses in this, but should we ensure that they're native species just to like continue to bring, you know, the Ridgway culture, the local mountain culture, and also to prevent invasive species and opening up a can of worms that we really don't want to mess with later?
And not get all the heat we had last time.
And not get all the heat we had last time. We really like to.
Yeah, those are our xeric grasses, just kind of xeric ornamental grasses. So I don't believe there's any additional lawn area. I think that is all existing.
Yeah, that's all existing, and I do think the number 20, that grass we're talking about, I do think it fits within our new landscape regs. Awesome. Think is the key word. You'd have to check into that. But again, this is just conceptual.
Yeah.
Really good point. And absolutely anything we want in there, we want to make sure it adheres to what we have in the code, right? So.
Absolutely. And then I know it said lighting, and I just want to ensure that it's all dark sky compatible. Just, you know, I know that that's our code, that's our standard, but, you know, just really repeating that and putting, making sure that our sky stays dark. That's the other thing. And then one other little thing that I thought about, for the art, I know that Tara, you mentioned doing something like to honor the Ute tribes. And I was wondering if maybe having a like actual modern Utes make that art, and like having some sort of a contest with a prize, and like from each of the 3 factions here. That was something that I thought of to maybe make it more inclusive, and less of like a, look, we're paying tribute to it and not actually doing the work. Take the time.
Can I approach them?
Please.
Yeah, I think I love that. And I think that there's an opportunity to really turn over narrative control of the interpretive space as well as like the art, and invite participation. So a staff member with presence for Ridgway, I'd be happy to facilitate something like that.
In fact, one idea that came up in the discussions, that could be just their space and it's rotating art, they could bring in art and replace it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and just in general, just have them define the use of that space other than and their terminology in terms of time and space. Even in the same token, in terms of the vernacular and collaborating and recognizing youth culture, et cetera. Walker, I know you even specified that it was conceptual on the Ridgway sign, established with the established date. Even that, some kind of recognition there, so that flows through the whole process. It's interesting because that'll be a bookend to also what's happening over at the Railroad Museum. And I know that Joan's got ambitions for all sorts of cultural demonstrations as well. So I know you've talked to her a lot, so I figured rather than having any redundancy, I feel like in that range of narratives, it's timely that you guys are all at the same crossroads. So. And I got one more question, actually. Total knee-jerk reflex when I heard the $400,000 term for the storage containers. I assume that's for full customization offsite somewhere and deliverable turnkey.
Yeah, they do come with packages where they can be customized inside. It includes door and window packages. It also includes the restroom, the prefab restroom, and the large shade structure. So it includes all of the buildings.
Gotcha. And does that break down to a price per square foot? Given the fact, and I asked that with the thought that there are other prefab things that are out there, where town's entertaining some right now. With the Telluride Foundation project here in town, and those break down the prices pretty cheaply for things that are built off-site. So I know the attraction of storage containers. I've got two, and I work with them, and they're a pain in the butt, even though they're hip. So I just, as out of curiosity, I know it's a go-to as a way to achieve some level of sustainability and efficiency, but I'm also wondering if there's other alternatives to look at as well.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a lot of kind of prefab stuff now, and if there's anybody doing that locally, maybe there's also ways to save some money there. But yeah, it's we've been looking at some pretty high numbers per square foot for custom building. I don't know what it is up in Ridgway, but we're like 600 to 900 a square foot for a custom building.
Yeah.
So it does seem like prefab in some format could help us be a lot more efficient.
I think those ones in Norwood are coming in at 150 a square foot.
Right, and they're projected similar for here once they get to that point. That prefab company that Telluride Foundation is using is out of Vista, I think. So yeah, a lot of opportunity there. More than one way to skin a cat, I think, is what Walker was getting at. But one thing to note is that anything we do would have to meet our building code, building regs. So that's what's so great about the company in Buena Vista working with the Telluride Foundation is we've asserted to them that they have to meet 2018 IRC, and they said, great, we'll do that. And it's as simple as that.
Noted. Yeah, just a thought, just as an option before we get too far down the road, even knowing it's conceptual.
Those prefab houses are pretty stick, not very durable. I think one of the interesting things about this containers is bulletproof, vandal-proof. These come out to 200 square foot, just doing that. That's probably.
Yeah, I mean, you'd still, since we're in the master planning phase, you'd still have to get an architect to help you, do the actual design, even though a lot of it is prefab, but they can come up with some super creative ways to use it and do the modifications, and help you evaluate what's the best prefab solution.
And on the storage container side, I don't dismiss them. I just have some experience with them and just know that there are other options out there that with prices coming down. So just knowing that when it comes to plans A, B, and C, will be on the conceptual stage right now. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, totally.
I had a quick question here on the phasing of this. I'm looking at the diagram with the red, yellow, and blue phase 1 through 3. It looks like the new visitor center would actually be in phase 2. And I'm guessing that the ADA bathrooms on the existing building are in phase 1 there. It seems like I saw something in the presentation said that may swap around. Is that all dependent on receipt of grants and funding to help with the other?
Yeah, one of the requests we're making to council today is to authorize us to sort of redraft this plan. And now that we've had some things that happened, some things that happened differently than anticipated, that we could go back in and redo the master plan with an updated timeframe.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, whatever is the priorities, it's, you know, I know that that's been discussed with the 2021 review of the plan, but just good to know what are the priorities of people.
I was gonna say, it's great to have this implementation plan, and Tara was exactly right. Part of the motion we're requesting is to direct staff to update the implementation plan, which is really just a guide. It's not the law of the land or anything. And this is something that you all as council would use throughout the year, but mainly in the budget cycle to inform upcoming budgets and where to set dollars and where to prioritize. So that's the importance of this document. It's up on the screen, the implementation plan. So.
And of course, we would bring that back to council for consideration of future drafts.
Okay, fantastic. Any other thoughts, comments, questions from the council?
It's gonna be beautiful.
It's cool. It looks great. Yeah. And I like all the work that's been done and kind of prioritizing this and laying it out, including the youth heritage piece of that. That's fantastic. Is there anybody else in the public who has any comments, questions they want to share? Sue?
Yeah. Pop up with, I was on the first round of the committees. I mean, on the committee since the beginning of the first round of this, and a couple of things that were really cool is, and looking at the agenda to see that you might be joining the Parks and Open Space, but Erin from Horizon is on that, and she has volunteered to consult with plants for waterwise and stuff like that too. And so I feel like it's been a really fun project to put everybody together. You know, all the committees that are working on different things have come together to work on this, and I'm really excited about it. And I just leaned to Scott and said, I especially love that photo op area. I just think, you know, after working in national parks for a long time, you know how cool those photo op areas are. And this one is so nice because it's out of the way. You don't have to drive over people to get over there. So I think they've done a really great job. So.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, this is Robin on Zoom. Thanks for giving us an opportunity. I guess one comment and a couple of questions. I definitely appreciate the Indigenous emphasis and would just encourage that we do that at every possible step, even maybe with regard to the architecture of the building, although I don't know how much you can do with those prefab. And definitely emphasize it in the informational kiosks. I know that it looks like there's quite a span with, you know, 5 or 6. And I hope that there will be more agreement. I have, and it's partly for council and maybe for Walker as well, is we talk a lot about not paving over the earth and the heat that comes from asphalt. And so one, I'm wondering if we need the parking lot to stay as large as it is. I love the idea of adding trees to it, although they do take up space. I don't know if there's any way we can expand the park part of the Heritage Park versus the parking lot, or if that's even desirable. It doesn't seem like we fill that parking lot, but of course we're looking to the future. And the second part, in addition to the asphalt, is it appeared, Walker, that in some of your photos there was concrete around the building. And I'm wondering if it's possible, I don't know anything about landscaping, so I don't know like the pros and cons of concrete versus gravel or pebble or wood chips, or, I mean, I know there's problems with all different surfaces, but those are kind of two of my questions about the parking lot size and the asphalt, and then other hard surfaces for drainage, for heat, etc. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I can give a little background and then I might need some help just how things are functioning now. But one of the reasons that we kept the parking lot that size was because it was being used as a park and ride for workers heading up to Telluride. So I'm not sure if that's still the case or if there's another spot where that is moved. If it's just the visitor center and the park, maybe you don't need that much. There was also talk of a regional transit potentially stopping here too. So anyway, that's why we kept the parking lot the size that it is. And then just on your second question, we do have concrete shown, just trying to keep a lot of the area more ADA accessible. But the one thing that you don't really notice as much is we have some large areas that are crusher fines, so they're pervious, and some of that can still be classified as accessible if it's compacted in the correct way. But it's a lot more, I would just say, friendly, soft solution. So we tried to come up with a little balance, and maybe there is still some more of that. You could reduce the paving a little bit too. So I think that's a good input, and we can take a look at that.
And just to piggyback on that, the site plan shows pavement for the parking lot, because I pretty much told Walker you have to put that on there to meet our town standards. But that's certainly, Robin, that's a really good point. That's potentially a low-hanging fruit to reduce cost eventually. And Robin, appreciate your remarks and being conscious of the environment, and something to look at when we get to that point. Absolutely. And then Walker was spot on about there's definitely this desire to bring the Mustang stop back to that area. That's going to take a lot of thoughtful conversations and considerations, not only by us, but with Ridgway County and other partners, of course, Mustang, CDOT, as we explore that. Because as you guys know, last year they moved over to Palomino Trail. That's going well, but there's definitely desire by I would say more than a few to get it back, and we just need to plan accordingly. So just wanted to add some context there.
And then is it still pretty much a congregation area for people to catch rides on the Telluride? There's still a lot of people doing that at this time.
I believe so.
I think there's even the shuttle.
The parking lot.
Yeah, well, and the shuttle that's $1. Like a lot of people that work at the hospital that live over here, I know they take it at 6:45 in the morning.
Okay.
So they walk down there or they drive and park.
Okay.
I'm going to add a couple things. To Robin's point of looking to the future, I think you should consider EV charging stations in the parking lot, which San Miguel Power can help fund and find funding for. Speaking of funding, then there's a $7,000 to $8,000 quarterly for what's called a community focused grant that you can get through San Miguel Power, as well as an annual sharing success grant up to $20,000 to $25,000. So for planning purposes, tap the local piggy bank, San Miguel Power, that can help you coordinate some of that. But there's, in addition, that there's incentives for the solar, incentives for going all electric. There's all kinds of beneficial electrification incentives that might help lower some of these costs. Lastly, because I'm a geek, it may not require a 25 kilowatt solar system, so it could be much smaller, less expensive on that. That's a detail I can help with as well. So, no.
Good. Do you have a comment?
No. I just, Ashley Perkins, the executive director of the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce, said it wasn't able to be here tonight. Obviously, they're core partners in that space. And so she had sent a statement that I just want to read on her behalf, if that's okay.
Sure.
She said, on behalf of the chamber and I and the board members, I and the board members are in support of the updated Heritage Park site plan, and as encouraging staff to update the long-term implementation plan. The RACC also strongly supports requesting a consultation that will begin the process of researching and developing cultural interpretive information for youth representation as part of the Heritage Park.
Cool. Thank you.
Tara, I'm also wondering if, you know, with all of the very cool vegetation that you're consuming, you could approach the Ridgway Community Garden to see if they can come up with a Friends of the Heritage Park Garden group or something that can actually maintain all that vegetation, lowering the cost to the town.
The youth Indian Museum also has like a traditional garden. I know Mary is posted on social media that she was here to a workshop the other day. So I wonder if there might be some partnerships.
And I know Mary that runs that program. I'm sure she'd be a great asset. for you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Just want to say a shout out of thanks to Tara for all her work. One of her first projects on the job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that.
So do I move? Can I move?
Please do. Not out of town.
I'm going to read this paragraph. I move to 1, approve the updated Heritage Park site plan for the strategic master plan for Ridgway Visitor Center and Heritage Park. 2, direct staff to update the long-term implementation plan and strategy based on the updated site plan for our review and consideration. And 3, authorize Mayor Clark to sign on behalf of the council a letter to the 3 Reef Tribe chairs requesting a consultation relationship to begin the process of researching and developing cultural and interpretive information and art installations to tell the story of Ridgway's youth heritage from the perspective of the youth. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those who approve?
Aye.
I think that passed unanimously. Awesome. Thank you. Very good work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Walker.
Okay, Tara, you're up again.
The Tara Show. So as you may or may not know, because I know we have some new council members, I manage the creative district as well as our Main Street program for the town of Ridgway. Those are both state level programs. They're both focused on economic development and both in our downtown core. And so last year, I think I've got that timing right before I came on, they were administratively merged because there were so many volunteers working on them at the same time and really nurturing our creative community, and the vitality of our creative community is central to our economic development plan. So we felt as though they were very compatible. And then part of what came up was like, Ridgway Creative Main Street is a mouthful. It doesn't have like a really snappy ring to it. So there's that. Also, we are a designated Main Street program, so that will not go away. Main Street program means something on a national level. So we wanted to retain a reference to that, but we recognized we needed some more branding, kind of a different branding. And I think Sue, was helpful in us saying, like, as we communicate to our community, we don't have a street called Main Street. Like, they don't know that we're part of this program. Like, what does this even mean to the town of Ridgway? And so we recognize that while we may have good, that we liked the creative district, it didn't bring in Main Street, but we checked with the state and they said, you don't have to keep Main Street in your name. In fact, not only do you not have to keep Main Street in your name, but we'll send somebody to help you with your rebranding if you would like for technical assistance. So we were thrilled. It's like, great. That was wonderful. So Ayers and Associates and I'm forgetting. Oh, you have it right up here. Arnett Boldrow were commissioned by Colorado Main Street at the state level to provide a pickaxe refresh process with us. So they call it pickaxe. It's one of the things that Colorado Main Street offers to communities in terms of branding that are Main Street communities around the state. They called it a refresh because we'd actually worked with them before. So the same consultants had been in Ridgway to help with the Think Outside campaign. And so they knew our community well. They knew what we were about. And so that was really helpful as a starting point. And they really like Ridgway, which was really fun. And so so they came, I had some conversations with the staff ahead of time we shared with them our existing branding and kind of recognizing that we wanted to expand the color palette a little bit. We wanted it to feel more creative and kind of fun. And we also wanted a name that the community could learn to recognize. Hey, cool, thanks, that's perfect. And we wanted also some cohesive branding with our events, like the film festival and First Fridays and other events we might come up with. So thank you, that's great. So that's our old logo, Ridgway Creative District, which only encompasses the Creative District part. So, oh, and then we also had a meet and greet, which I think the council heard a little bit about on May 10th. It was fortuitous timing. We just wanted to invite the community, entrepreneurs, creatives to come and connect. And I was remiss in not making individual invitations to some council members on that. I'm sorry. But we had a wonderful time. We had over 30 people come to the Charbonneau. They donated the space and we just had a wonderful meet and greet. And as part of that, Matt Ashby was there to facilitate a process first with our committee and then with the people who came to visit and mingle with us. And so that was just fantastic timing. He shared with us, here's your existing your existing kind of branding assets. Pointed out that they were pretty limited in color, although of course we really like them. So he asked the community members to kind of weigh in on what's the color palette, what makes you think of Ridgway? They took the colors directly from our landscape. And so you can see the people who came kind of indicated some preferences around colors. And then, so these are the proposed colors that the Pickaxe Project brought to us. So a bit of an expanded palette for us to work with. And then also what kind of typeface did we want to use? So they gave us some options there. I want to tell a brief story that one of our kind of longtime standing creatives and most serious artists in the community, Ed Warner, had actually done on his own a script sign that said Ridgway Creatives that he had just kind of done on his own. And he offered that to be kind of brought into the mix as we were considering this rebranding and attended the events as well. You'll see it on the next page. It's kind of up in the corner there. And so the Ridgway Creative District script was by far the favorite based on Ed's handmade sign. And so this was the typeface that was proposed to us. And so Ridgway, the word, that's not a font. It's just it's just an image. Ridgway, based loosely on that work. And then they gave us a secondary typeface as well. So we'll keep going. I'll try to get through this. I see, I'm controlling this here. And so just now dawned on me. And so we also weighed in on the kind of the personality of the community. Are we more, we kind of landed a little bit more contemporary on the traditional and contemporary spectrum. People thought we were definitely right in the middle between old and new. And so I just thought this was a really interesting exercise. We found ourselves to be very, very casual. And so you can sort of see how people indicated that they saw our community's identity. And so this, the Pickaxe Refresh project has been done with creative districts and main streets, as I said, around the state. And they've used some of these words, like that's I think Montrose Dark, that's their Main Street program, the Lake City Dirt, the Lions Vibe. So these are the kind of catchy little names that they've been working on with other communities' branding efforts. And so we got to weigh in on what sort of words we thought made sense, really represented Ridgway, what it means to us. A lot of people were saying, it's all about connecting, being connected with each other, thriving, a little rebellious and unconventional. Felt important, especially to promote creativity and innovation and creative thinking that's required to really truly be creative. So this is a whole kind of branding package that they shared with us, and they recommended Ridgway Fuse. So Fuse not being an acronym for anything, just Fuse, and really a double entendre between both kind of fusing and bringing together, infusing into the community, as well as sort of igniting potential creativity in new projects. So it's Ridgway Fuse, a Colorado creative Main Street program would be the new brand.
And lighting dynamite.
And lighting dynamite, but not lighting forest fires. Definitely not that. Red lighting died. And also, and Joan pointed out, like the town that refused to buy. So refuse. And they suggested for us some new ways of using the branding and communicating about our mission. I feel like I want to pause for a minute and give council an opportunity to ask questions. If you have any midway questions before I finish up. Because I'm saying a lot and moving really fast.
Process.
Okay.
We're all soaking it in.
All right, great. Ben, who was really the brains behind the branding, showed us lots of different ways that this could be utilized. He actually made us a new alphabet from scratch, or like 2 of them, which I didn't know was a thing you could do. So he'll share that with us. You can see there's vertical, different ways to use it. And then this is something that was really surprising and to me is he actually said, he's like, you guys are the only community that can pull this off because Ridgway is Ridgway. And he's like, you could actually redo, like you could use your same color palette and redo the font of Fuse entirely every so often. You could engage young people in the community, school groups, other creatives to, we take a letter maybe, or we could work with it in fun and creative ways that would be also community engagement opportunity. So here's just some ways that it can be applied in different contexts. And then he suggested this for us for our Ridgway Independent Film Fest. So it doesn't even say Fuse, but it references it, I think, visually. First Friday, we have actually already started using this because First Friday was happening before the council meeting. So we were hoping it would be okay. So this is kind of funny. It's like no coincidence that Fuse starts with FU. I thought it was a little cheeky and maybe like a little much, but I also appreciated the kind of playfulness of it and this kind of hearkening to our creative and independent thinking spirit. So, and then they also created a brand implementation template for us to utilize. I won't go through. And then the creative, sorry, I'll just come back to some images here. The Creative Main Street Committee that's been appointed by council heard the presentation, Ben shared it with us in a video that's also in your packet that you can watch if you choose. And they unanimously felt like they wanted to request that council give their blessing to this new branding system so that we could start a plan for updating our website and kind of putting this out into the community in a more kind of formal way. Announcing this new identity. I'd love to hear your feedback and questions.
It looks
It's
great.
cool.
It's really neat.
It's the most dynamic, quote unquote, branding system I've ever seen, which I hate using the term branding,
Yeah.
but there's a lot to it. So looks like a great platform.
Yeah, it's a neat identity of the 2 previous organizations and whatever's to be. It's kind of cool.
Ben said he's done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of branding systems for communities, and he reuses some of the words, they're on the other sides of the country, and it's really nobody's gonna really know. And he's like, he's never used this one before. He really felt like Ridgway deserved its own, special branding. So yeah, we all really loved it too.
It's an interesting presentation. I watched it on that. So if you haven't seen it, it's a good one.
And I don't know if anybody else, Sue is a member of our committee as well. She wants to share.
We go on.
If that's okay.
I think the packet. One of the things that impressed me the most that I think is super handy are these items. The brand touch implementation checklist, the how to be a brand partner, they did so much work here. It's just crazy that we don't have to do now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And Ed Werner was sitting in this meeting when they were launching this, and he said, we just paid for the Marillac Clinic like $50,000 to do this very same thing. And it didn't come out this well. So, I mean, I just felt like they really brought it. They knew Ridgway, they knew us, they really dialed it in, I thought. So anyway, I loved it.
And I just want to highlight, I mean, Matt and Ben, tremendous job. It was all made possible by Colorado Main Street.
Yes.
We didn't have to do any of this, which is unbelievable. Colorado Main Street
Yes.
program, Colorado Main
Yes.
Street program.
Yes. Thank you, Preston, for continuing to remind us of that. It's such a huge gift. That's it for me.
Okay, are there any comments, questions from council? Add on to this?
I love it. I've been a part of this the last few weeks as this is all developed. It's pretty exciting to see it here from you guys, so I love it. It's great. It is a heck of a value. I went through this with a company we formed, and they more than $50,000 to do the same thing. It's amazing.
They did it overnight.
Yeah, overnight, like in, honestly.
Yeah, so like we had our party on the 10th and at 9 a.m. on the 11th, they presented this to us, that video. Yeah, they stayed up all night and did it.
And he's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Like, all the night at the same time. So it was wild.
That's very impressive.
Anybody from the public have any comments, questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the new branding system for Ridgway Creative Main Street program. Oh, I'm sorry.
Seconded. You're speedy demon quick, my friend.
I was on it and then, oh man, sorry guys.
You gotta be quicker at here.
Man.
All right,
I'm
move to
so-
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I can retract. I think that's a unanimous, so excellent job again. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
And, yeah, this is very exciting. Amazing that they were able to pull it together that well and that quickly. So,
Yeah. When we have those state level partners, we stretch our budget and our capacity so much.
nothing on us to do it. So that's even more exciting.
What else have you got for us, Tara?
Well, second to last, I will mention that, and I somewhere in, I think if we got it in there in time, another part of our goal this year is to revamp our website. So obviously the branding will feed into that. And then as the Main Street manager, one of the things that I really need that we don't currently have is a comprehensive system for having a business directory. Because we don't have a business license, which is totally fine. It's probably beyond our capacity right now. Our lists are constantly kind of out of date. We never know that we have everybody. And when people come into the community, there's also, other than Google, there's not like a map that really highlights where can you go to eat and drink here? Where can you go? You know, those are also fairly partial. And so we, another kind of great asset from Colorado Main Street, a contractor that they work with is called Membershipware. And they actually have a software for Main Street. So it's from a Main Street in St. Paul. No, I don't think that's quite right. Another city. They developed this software and they gave us a free trial. So we're trying it out. And we used Rural Philanthropy Days and First Fridays as a test run. And we have currently, I think, 112 businesses really focused on our downtown core. And so there's a link to it in your packet. It's also in the Alpenville Arts Alliance QR code. It's on the First Friday QR code. So we can use it for events. We could use it for walking tours. We could use it for oral history projects or all kinds of things. But we're really starting with it. And behind this website that we can use in the public face, there's a business directory that we can also use and gather data about economic development.
Awesome.
So we're piloting it. June's our pilot month and our evaluation month. And if it goes well, we may come back to council and request approval for moving forward with that in an official way. So,
Is Chamber involved in that as well?
yeah, Chamber's been working really closely. And so they helped us to put together the list and we've been in dialogue about how we might partner and collaborate on the build out of it. Yeah, which would probably be till like the end of the year. But Membershipware charges $70 a month to entirely host our website with this directory and events calendar, all kinds of stuff that we want to build out, all the modules. So we'll keep you posted.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. Agenda item 14. Community Funding Partnership for Governor Basin Restoration. Who's presenting for this one?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I do think we have Tanya Ishikawa with UWP here. Tanya, you can jump in if I miss anything, but UWP has requested that you all sign and send a letter of support directly to the Colorado River District in support of UWP's request for funding for the Governor Basin Restoration Project. There's some documents attached to the drafted letter, or the letter that's been drafted, that gives some background on this project. You all heard at least a little bit about this project, I think, during UWP's last annual report. That would have been in August, I think. I'm kind of making that up. I don't know. I don't remember when it was, but Tanya, do you have anything to add?
I don't remember the last time I reported to you, no, but yeah, I did come in February to let you know that the town of Ridgway was our partner of the year. So I know I did that and delivered an annual report after that. The Governor Basin, I can't remember when Ashley told you about it last. Did you want, yeah, so I don't have anything more to report. I mean, the Governor Basin project is a very important project to us. It's and to the community. It has been in the works for at least 5 years. And we're at a critical point where we want to get on the ground and actually do the work. So the final funding to get that done is key. UWP has had good experience in doing 3 projects in the past successfully, and we'd like to do this next one high in the watershed so that it can have impacts down through several streams. And so we would really appreciate support.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments? It's quiet here. All right. Anybody from the public, anything to say? Sir?
I'm Scott Williams. I'm a board member and treasurer for UWP. And thank you very much for taking this up tonight. I don't really have anything to add other than on just 2 days ago, the Tri-County Water Conservancy District also approved a letter in support of our application for funding from the Colorado River District. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
And I guess I could add quickly that City of Ouray also provided a letter of support, Chavano Conservation District. So we are an American Whitewater. So we're getting pretty wide support from different types of stakeholders that we really appreciate.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
I think we should join that list.
Oh yeah, 6 Basins project. Sorry to interrupt, but I was excited about that one as well.
Okay, and that's not in this one. This is just Governor Basin.
Right.
Right. Okay. Okay. Anybody? Maybe you have a motion here?
I motion to approve sending the letter as written by Joan Clark to support your Governor's Basin Restoration Project.
Second.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. There's a unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Tanya. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 15 here. Post office, revocable encroachment permit for the use of town property to install a post office drop box.
Yep, thank you, sir. I'll take this one. So before you use a revocable encroachment permit for use of town property, if approved, it would allow the post office to encroach on town property, allowing them to install a drop box on the landscaped island right out here in the middle of the U-shaped right of way off the intersection of North Lena Street and Clinton Street, commonly used for post office parking. The vision is for the new drop box is is to allow patrons of the post office the ability to drive up, drop mail in the drop box without having to leave their vehicle. As a resident, I think that's a really cool idea. And that idea came from Ms. Sue Hush.
Ridgway volunteer.
Volunteer here every year.
Lazy, I don't.
Be that as it may.
Smiles Done is a good example, you know, she's 93, it's icy, you know, and having the mailbox right up next to the doesn't do her any good. But driving, being able to drive through and just stuff that seems like a good idea.
I won't even bring up Smiles still driving.
I know. That's not what this is about.
I think this is a great idea. The only questions I would have about it is are there also some signage or painting requirements? Because this is a popular place where people park in that particular location as well.
The tree.
So, well, yeah, but we would have to do some sort of curb painting or maybe some crosshatch, not a marking area.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we'll have to work through that. I don't think we have a plan in place on how to address it, but you're right, painting the curb, signing in accordingly. Post office folks and others just trying to educate folks not to park there under the shade of the tree. Keep that open and reserved for folks just on the go, right? So, but yeah, good point.
My only other question is snow in the wintertime. I know that's like kind of where the mound is. Will it like?
We'd have to adjust. That's a good point too, that I hadn't really thought of, but yeah, we'd have to figure out a different spot to store snow and work hard to make sure it's accessible and clear. So.
I actually did talk to Steve about that when we first talked about it, and is it okay for me to?
Yeah, right.
The mound is actually on the street side, and since this is on the inside, the only issue really with the mound is pulling out. Is for the people pulling
Just
out.
making sure that it's
Just making sure that it's, yeah, that they get out past there, you know, in order to see it. With that already being one way, pretty much to that point, it alleviates a lot of the problem there, especially in the winter time. It's usually pretty good, but we did talk about that. And the only other issue in that area where we're talking about doing it, it leaves all the other trees okay. You know, it's just that one little one. So it's not as big of a problem, but the only other issue there is one sprinkler water line. And Stephen's aware and he's fine with that, so.
Okay.
Let's hope it doesn't become a problem.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on this one?
You ever had a post office box named after you before? Sue?
Can make you good lunch. Okay. Not seeing any other comments. Any other comments from the public? So anybody got a motion? Go, TJ. That's what I said. I kind of fumbled, but it was JD.
I'm trying to get back there. I'm trying to get to the right part where it shows it. Come on.
You gotta be queued up.
I didn't queue up on this one, I'm sorry. Okay. I'd like to make a motion that the revocable encroachment permit for the use of town property to install a post office drop box be pursued by the council, adopted by the council.
I'll second.
Yeah. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion pass unanimously.
Love Smiles.
Thanks so much. All good.
If it's for Smiles, anything.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 16, authorization and purchase dissolved oxygen monitoring equipment for the Ridgway wastewater treatment plant. Preston.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So memo covers it, but I'll just try to give some background. So in 2021, town expressed a commitment to CDPHE that we would implement what's what we call a subsurface system and data logging equipment to continuously monitor the dissolved oxygen level in each of the cells at the wastewater treatment plant. Last fall during the budget cycle, council, the project was estimated at somewhere around 20,000. That project was budgeted for based on that amount in the 2022 annual budget. Staff obtained quotes for a dissolved oxygen monitoring system, which both came in over $30,000. Even after modifying the scope of the system, Joanne Fagan, our town engineer, and Driscoll Lane, our ORC, spent a considerable amount of time and back and forth with some of these companies to try to adjust the scope. At this point, staff's recommending moving forward with the quote we received from Mountain Peak Controls out of Golden, Colorado. Total amount being $31,760 to furnish and install the system. We're talking about the dissolved oxygen monitoring system. That's nearly, rounding up, of course, $12,000 over the budgeted amount. But from staff's perspective, we do feel comfortable with that overage. We do feel that the sewer fund can accommodate it. It's a really important project, and it's a commitment we expressed to CDPHE. And then it's in the memo, but the procurement policy we have in place has a provision where the town manager can waive the formal RFP process, which didn't really make sense for this specific piece of equipment. So that's what we did. And you all are, we need council approval of expenditures over $25,000. Joanne, did I miss anything? She may not even be there.
She was online.
I think you got it. I had to find the unmute button.
No worries.
Thanks,
So
Joanne.
I guess my only question on this is, I know we kind of modified our original scope on this. Is it still going to meet the intent, I assume, of what CDPHE was looking for?
Yeah.
And what kind of stuff did we trim out?
I appreciate that question. The short answer is yes. I need Joanne to talk to some of the stuff that was trimmed out. But yeah, it meets the original intent that we had discussed with CDPHE, and it will give us that system that will monitor those levels in each of the cells. So it's just another variable for us to monitor.
And I guess along
What we gave up was mostly the remote monitor, the ability to log in remotely.
Okay. And then are there spares included in this proposal? Just in the event that whatever pieces we're buying fail, that we've got spares on hand?
I don't think so. Joanne?
No, there aren't. This isn't a critical function. So if it goes, if something went out and we couldn't monitor for a week or so, it would not be a problem. This is something that part of the intent is to be able to use power more efficiently. Part of it is to just track what's going on with the ponds, but it's a pretty small snapshot.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And will Mountain Peak service the actual physical piece of equipment? In the off chance there is something that goes wrong?
Yes. Yeah, the company's out of Boulder, but the person that we work with is based out of Paonia, and he's very responsive. If it's, he's very busy, and so sometimes if it's not a critical function, you may wait a little bit for some help, but he's, a lot of the towns use him, and he's been really responsive.
Yeah, Brian mentions his name. He's been a big resource for our staff.
Cool, thank you.
And this comes out of the sewer fund, not the general.
That's correct. All right. Any other comments, questions? I'm sure there's somebody in the public who wants to weigh in on this, but I don't see them online. So. Excuse me. All right, given no additional comments, anybody want to make a motion?
Yes,
Please do.
I move to approve the deviation from procurement procedures, waive the formal request for bid process for acquisition of equipment, authorize the purchase of a dissolved oxygen monitoring system from Mountain Peak Controls in the amount of $31,760, and authorize staff to enter into a purchase agreement for said equipment.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved unanimously. We're knocking them out, kids. All right, we're done with the normal agenda. We have a couple of additional items. We have the water restriction.
Water restrictions. So quickly, laid ad and Dropbox yesterday afternoon. According to the US Drought Portal, Ridgway County, other areas in southwestern Colorado currently experiencing either severe or extreme drought conditions. If you look at it, Ridgway County's in the severe category. This is that website. And this is what I would characterize as the same as it ever was for this time of year. It seems like the last several years. So we're recommending the council promulgate stage 1 voluntary water restrictions for the town of Ridgway based on the water conservation and management plan we have in place and those triggers we have in place.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Are there any changes to this from previous years? Same standards for the town?
In relation to the plan?
Yeah.
No, it hasn't changed since I think 2018 or 2019 when that was put into effect.
You know, I know it's more work, but I actually went to the Colorado Extension Office in Norwood, trying to ask what I can do to replace my 12-foot by 12-foot patch of obligatory grass that I put in my belt. And the information varied. So I wonder if in addition to putting out these voluntary water restrictions, we can have a little bit of an informational page. I mean, it's worth, I know, but on the website, along with the announcement of this, offering suggestions of what you can do to reduce your watering needs. Besides just, hey, you know, stop watering. What you do, but here's what you can do.
Sure, but you're talking specific to landscaping modifications.
Yeah, in that sense, I mean, as it related to me with my cutting back on watering, well, what do I not water? So it might be helpful to have several bullets of suggested, what can you do to help meet this voluntary restriction?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly be a little more proactive than just trying to provide more information on exactly what you're saying. Let folks know how they can serve outside of just not running your tap. Yeah.
I actually just emailed Beth today, who's at the climate conference, about that kind of stuff, especially under the auspices of the Sustainable Development Committee, including all of the stuff that the state is offering and other communities are offering to even pull out grass and change it with xeriscaping. And there's incentives for that now. And they're finding out that with incentives, it happens pretty quickly. So along those lines, that's another regulatory issue, for landscaping stuff, but that kind of information, I think that's a good one that we could provide if we build that up on the website.
Yeah, thinking outside the box once again.
There is no box.
We have implemented penalties if you use more water, not an incentive if you use less water, some sort of a discount.
In competition,
you come in under a certain threshold,
or
maybe your bill drops $5 or something.
Certainly something we can look at. Absolutely. I wanted to mention that there's a state House bill. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it instituted a turf replacement program.
Yeah.
Is that what you were just talking about?
Yeah, it became active.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I, on a personal level, really interested in, and how that's going to mesh with communities that already have programs like that in place. And so that's definitely something to keep an eye on, those incentives that come with it. So.
Is that still an ongoing bill or? just-
I think it was approved.
It's been approved?
I think, well, I don't remember exactly. I do think it was signed into law, and it'll take some time for the program to evolve and for it to be administered.
Okay.
Keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
The water manager from the city of Aurora was one of the authors of that, that worked to get that through the state. And Aurora, despite its reputation as sort of a no man's land in urban, they actually have some of the highest conservation programs in the state. And part of it started with the municipality by demonstrating that they could pull out as much turf as they possibly could. And then they've done that, and they've also reduced the amount of employees they've needed for maintenance and the amount of money that they've had to invest in gray water programs. Aesthetically, some people challenge it, but it's primarily on the aesthetics. So interesting. Yeah, I've done a bunch of that. So I'm happy to share.
Cool. All right, anything else?
Go ahead, Jay. No public comment?
Okay, we'll open up to the public, see if the public has anything. No public here. Couple online, but not seeing any hands raised, unmuted, so let's go for a motion.
Sure. I move to promulgate stage 1 voluntary water restrictions for the town of Ridgway.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, pass unanimously. All right,
That's sort of-
and then we got one more here. On the extension of the striker closure on Laura Street.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So Striker's closure of Laura Street, that half block is slated to end June 14th to 15th, I believe it is. They haven't come forward with a formal request, but Mr. JT Thomas and I were having a conversation earlier today. Given your proximity to the closure and the relationship with Stryker there, that's where you live. It's great to see that you have a good working relationship with Brian Kale and others over there. So JT and I are having a conversation today, and thought it'd be worthwhile to have a conversation with you all about that closure and whether or not it'd be worthwhile to consider extending the closure, given that it would help Stryker out. I don't want to speak on their behalf. It would definitely help them out tremendously, given where they're at with the project, the work that still needs to be done. I guess that's the gist. Anything else on that?
It's not just for efficiency, it's also for safety. They definitely ran into the issues of people going down the one way when they had a single lane there. And having watched those guys day in and day out, I know that the only thing that's held them up is the supply chain. And so they're kicking butt to get it done, but the reality is the things that have interrupted it will be on their control. And then right now, they actually are at a point where they're doing exterior cosmetic and interior work, which they've staged all of the stuff that's now ready coming in. But their ideal is that they need a couple more months to make sure that they get all that stuff in there. And since then, after I talked to them today, and we prairie dog over the top of the fence, and then I know it's a discussion about their process. I called Preston. I know did you reach out and get John today?
I spoke with both John and Beth. I do not want to speak for them, but I'll just convey what I heard. Beth was a little hesitant to consider that or grant any sort of extension. She lives in somewhat close proximity to, and was really conscious and thoughtful about it being tourist season, summer season, a lot of people here, impact on the businesses, not affording the one way and keeping it closed. And so she did not seem inclined to grant an extension. Again, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but that's just what I took away. Mayor Clark, a bit in the same boat, but said he could, what I took away was he supported either way. but certainly recognize the impacts of keeping it closed longer. The last thing I'll say on this is back in January, when Mr. Mark Klutz, representing Stryker, I think he was on the Zoom. They did say, June 14th would be it. That's all we need. And at a principle, I think everyone heard that. And it's very important that they recognize the impacts to the business community and to vehicle traffic in general in that area. So I wanted like everyone to remember that too.
And when you told me that in principle, and I remember that from that Zoom meeting, when they asked me today, it was definitely sheepish, knowing that they were going beyond their deadline and knew they'd get some pushback. And the only thing I can offer is just a personal testament that, especially living next to it, they worked really hard. They're a way better neighbor than what happened during ramp project. And they're kicking butt. The trains left the station and we want to get them home on it. So that's my pitch for them on their behalf.
You're okay with that?
I'm totally
being the closest representative.
I am a total proponent of doing whatever it takes to keep them efficient,
Totally.
given the fact that they've faced natural stumbling blocks.
And safety.
And it's not just their plea, but I even stepped back and looked at it like the traffic that goes around on Charles, through people cutting through the alleys sometimes, RVs now coming into town and then having to turn on the Clinton going east. And it's like, okay, yes, all that stuff is a mess, but we greenlit this big project. And as a partner to it, I feel like even though it does impact the businesses, it'll impact them more if we don't do everything we can to facilitate them getting the end run.
I agree. It'd be messier. Yeah. To force it down.
The only hesitation I have is this happened so fast today. Want to be considerate of the people that live right there on that part of Laura Street. And I didn't reach out and knock on doors, and I thought retroactively that I should have done that. But nonetheless, that probably would have inhibited the process as well. And I came from a journalism world, so rather than asking for a position, I can apologize later if I have to.
So JT, did you get a sense for a desired extension date?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal would be the Wednesday, August 31st, and have full access and use of that road repaired ready by September 1, which is Thursday, September 1, which then leaves an uninterrupted holiday of Labor Day, so that traffic could resume in. So that was their ideal. But to use Brian's words, anything would help. Time period.
Thank you for that. So is there any appetite for any sort of extension whatsoever? That's the question.
I think the only reason I'm hesitant to, I'll just say like, yeah, you should extend it is, when the park is coming up and it is the summer season. Yes, that is one holiday, but there are multiple others
That was my brainstorm.
yeah.
I think and that was, like I said, on the ideal end.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
To your point of efficiency, is not extending it going to further drag out the length of time of construction there, or
Not based upon my observations on how they're getting stuff done. I think they would rather be done tomorrow. But the supply chain's not allowed that, or the labor force. So, really what we're considering is, do we grant them a month and then have to revisit it, or do we grant them 2 months with the notion that we might have to revisit it again even still? But basically that what brings us from June to July to mid-August, and then another week or so past that. So basically 10 weeks.
to be clear, it's the section of Laura Street there, just from the corner down
to Charles.
Yeah, from Clinton to the alley between Clinton and Charles.
So just that one.
Yeah, it's a half block.
So does that, not living there, does that stretch receive much tourist traffic? Other than people trying to find a place to park?
No, don't have traffic counts or anything, but I live a half block away from there. I see people turning down there and then turning around, maybe once a day or something like that, pretty frequently. but can't talk to the impact to tourists and patrons of the businesses.
And the parking on Clinton is still gonna be blocked.
Disrupted anyway.
Disrupted anyway,
Yeah.
correct?
I mean,
Okay, so
the
that's
biggest
not-
impact I can see for, yeah, it's a problem not being able to get through that one block for tourists and anybody else around here. The other part is that there's that parking, that diagonal parking right there along the way. It doesn't sound like that's probably gonna be open. Because they'd still need to have the one way.
Yeah, and the one lane was turning into a total hazard.
Right, and that becomes a safety issue.
I'd rather close it than have one.
Oh, yeah, that's what they ran into. And I watched it multiple times with cars and vehicles and people even trying to walk through there. So when they closed it down entirely, of course, it was more interruption, but it also seemed like it made the most sense.
So what's everybody's feeling on this? Do we do an extension, full extension? Do we do it through the end of August? Do we go part way?
Year from now, this is all gonna be a memory. A year from now, this is all gonna be a memory.
It's correct.
Hopefully. Doesn't say much. but-
I feel like we're gonna be navigating this even with, old firehouse and.
It'll just be a different
requests.
street.
Musical disruptions.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, between the bank building, between the firehouse, it's gonna be a bit of a mess here for a while, getting around that area, so.
I'm open to extending at least through the end of July. If you guys want to take it to August, that's fine too, just to help them. Either or, it's gonna be messy.
allow it up to a point with a strong suggestion they get it done sooner. Give them the opportunity to celebrate it. We did it before our deadline.
If I could suggest, council meeting would be on August 10. I would suggest you all to consider maybe extending to, it's around the 10th or 11th of August, and if there's something else needed, if you all wanted to entertain this.
I like
if they needed anything else beyond that, then we could talk about it at that. Or you could do the July meeting. I'm just trying to help.
No, I don't think July meeting is long enough. I think if we set it up for the August meeting and then see what cards we got then.
Concurrence?
Are we, is there any other summer thing, event specifically that, is it just music on Thursdays that's the primary driver of traffic, or is it just general traffic all through the summer?
General visitor traffic besides the concerts, yeah. So I think, oh, and the rendezvous, the music, the rendezvous, that'll be 13th and 14th, so.
And I don't know the traffic studies, but by all means, when people do come in by the church on North Laura there, almost always, they always turn down Clinton anyway, whether they have a small car or an RV they can tow. There's no signage for that.
Right.
So the lack of access through there, at least going from that direction, is, I think, I would pontificate that it's used less than we think it is. I would think that more the bigger impacts is to the people that live directly across the street from there. And that's an unfortunate part of everything's taking longer.
Okay, so we have concurrence on going to about August 10, then we can review on that meeting and get some input from Stryker on where they are at that time.
So we would need a so moved.
So moved.
That's followed by,
Second.
thank you.
Train like rats. Just on that same wavelength, we've got the firehouse fence going literally in just a couple of days, I think. And then the Lena Street work, is that coming up?
That's coming up.
What's the start date on that?
I can cover that in the manager's report, if you guys would like.
What a segue.
Okay, so before we go there, do we need to do, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. So then, yeah, it's true.
Just for the record, that's for August 10th.
August.
That's separate.
Yeah, through the August.
I'd say 11. 11.
11.
Since we'll be doing it on the 11th, we'll give them a day. That's why
And then
folks
we
get
can organize the month.
I think I heard the 11th.
You definitely heard the 11th. That's what I heard.
No problem. I strained the days. Heck, I've offered to help put on my belt and get her done.
All right. That's our normal agenda, managers.
Yeah, so I started a little late in getting it out, got it out today. Start with the Lena Street project. Joanne, our town engineer, Ron, myself will be in a pre-con meeting with Ridgway Valley tomorrow afternoon or midday tomorrow to talk about their timeline, when they want to start to get all the documents executed, et cetera. Once we get date pinpointed, we'll start communications to residents and stuff so they understand the timeline and the impacts and everything. So yeah, that's moving forward. I'm just not quite sure when. They've maintained, Ridgway Valley has maintained mid-June. Well, we're at June 8th now. We're doing the pre-con meeting. So now we just need to leave enough time to be considerate for the neighbors and for everyone. So that's the update there. Any questions on that? If that makes sense.
I think the only thing we'll need to do from that potentially is make sure we communicate with Chautauqua Society, because they have those dual plans on how they're going to route the music.
Oh,
And that had potential to go up or reroute, but they'll need to know which of their plans they need to execute. So
we can get in touch with them and let them know. Nina will not be a desirable project. So good thought there. Road Philanthropy Days is here. It's been really cool. I think that maybe they're wrapping up their event out here. Yesterday was a really cool day. It was the opening day. I gave a housing tour to about 45 people, featuring some of our developments around town. It was really well attended, sold out tour, which the entirety of the session was about 3.5 hours long. The conclusion of which was at the Church of the San Juans, where we had a housing panel discussion. And I think it was very well received. And the Community Resource Center has done a great job organizing the event. The steering committee has been doing a great job. Tara has represented the town on that. So glad to have them here. We did get a grant extension on our EIF 9281 grant through DOLA. That's related to the granular activated carbon filtration treatment alternative project to replace the chlorine dioxide machine. So the extension is good through the end of this calendar year. So hopefully soon we'll be able to pick up where we left off and try to bring that to fruition. I would suspect we'll need another extension, but that's not a big deal. I think Joanna can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're eligible for up to like 5 years of extensions just based on a number of circumstances. The piano key crosswalks in town, we contacted CDOT about getting them repainted. A lot of them are, in my opinion, I think a lot of them are just worn down. They need a fresh coat of paint, so CDOT's working on that. Solar array on the athletic park restrooms. Another couple weeks before that goes up. Water treatment plant security fence. We're looking at, I think, the second week of August. I just heard back from Taylor Fence Company today. I think they were able to pencil us in then, and they'll move us up if they can. The speed radar signs. This was cool. I was under the impression they wouldn't be installed till August. That was an update they sent us like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. And then Shane sent me these texts saying they're up the other day, and CDOT never told us. So westbound and eastbound, right where they said they'd put them. And I'm already getting some messages from folks saying, this is great, thank you. So I don't know if you've seen them, but pretty cool.
And just in controlling and observations, you seem to be having some effect on traffic.
Cool, good.
In the eastbound one, there by the school crossing, was absolutely the perfect placement because people can see it coming down the hill. Because it's just right after the crosswalk, so. Kudos to CDOT for the placement on what we asked them to do.
Cool.
Do they just illuminate speed or do they?
They show
Flash
their
flashes.
speed,
Yeah.
it flashes if you're at 25 or higher.
See, I understand
Flashes.
CDs.
You are such a.
And I noticed that they're full of solar power.
For the solar panel.
Saved me a speeding ticket today.
And net zero.
We've got a new patrol vehicle, which should be in service in the next couple weeks probably. So
Was we have supply issues with the graphics and stuff for
Are you keeping the base color black or are you gonna paint it white or?
I think we're gonna leave it black. It was right at the limit of what we had budgeted due to the supply issues that we ran into. So kind of the plan for right now is to leave it black.
Sneaky, sneaky.
sneaky.
Yeah. It'll be marked.
Going black on black with the marking.
Yeah.
Stealth.
The rollers.
Concert series is coming up. First one on Thursday, the 7th. Shout out to Pam and Deb for all their work organizing the concert. A lot of work. So thank you, Pam. Tara already updated you on the interactive map and directory that she's been working on. Tara to talk. You guys have any questions I can have to answer?
Joke of the day.
You got the joke. Who calls their dentist dude? Is that curious?
Millennial.
I guess I could have put Doc. I just thought it'd be funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
On the joke,
yeah.
I'm with Pam on that.
I liked it, Preston.
What do you think?
Oh, no.
What do you think?
All right.
You can't win there.
I can't remember, but I know Bo's got one. So come on, Bo. Shake it out.
What did the duck say when he purchased chapstick?
What?
Put it on my bill.
Of course.
Is that from your son too?
Tell some quality jokes.
All right. Does anybody else have anything else we need to cover? Awesome. And unless anybody's hollers real quick, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the pound there.
You hit the hammer.
Thanks for letting me sneak in edgewise.